Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is August the 12th. Thanks for joining me. I just keep finding new evidence that old is new, and it seems like we're just redoing the 90s, which is weird because I remember the 90s being a lot better than this. It's like the 90s with all the worst things, the internet and none of the wild pants or crazy MC Hammer balloon stuff or any of that. So we're going to do that. I'm going to start off with something I don't normally do. We're just going to start off with a clip. And the clip is based on today's title. Some of you don't remember, but Jeff Johnson, that's the name you know. We're doing it again. They pulled it off in South Carolina last night. For those of you who needed a crystal ball to see that Lindsey Graham's sister, who used to go by Darlene Nordone, but now goes by Darlene Graham again, because Graham is the name you know, this is a tried and true tactic. And The Distinguished Gentleman was a movie that starred Eddie Murphy. And it was kind of a look at politics. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek recognition by folks in Hollywood and people who were doing the arts to say, you know, it's all kind of a scam. And these people are crooks. And we all kind of knew that. We all kind of felt like that was true. And so they made a comedy about it. It was charming. It was entertaining. And the way that Eddie Murphy rides his way into office is that the congressman in his district dies. And his last name is Johnson. Eddie Murphy's last name is Johnson, the character. So he runs for office on name recognition alone. This movie was released in 1992, and it worked. It still works.
Cast your vote for Jeff Johnson. Good old Jeff. A name that you can trust. A name that you know. Jeff Johnson.
Why you no vote Jeff Johnson? He the name you know. Go down vote for Jeff. Jeff Johnson, the name you know. Hey, you eating the green, and you on the cornbread. Put that down and cast your vote for Jeff Johnson. The name you know. You know it's good. Jeff is good. Just like them greens. Jeff and greens. When you think greens, think Jeff Johnson.
In this Michigan world, you wanna vote for Jeff Johnson. I don't know why I gotta come drive through here and tell you this. You should know who to vote for. We're voting for Jeff because he's a good person. What, are you crazy?
We're not going to show you Jeff Johnson waving a flag. And we're not going to show you Jeff Johnson kissing babies. We're not going to show you Jeff Johnson doing anything because you already know what Jeff Johnson can do. Tomorrow, vote Jeff Johnson, the name you know.
That sound white enough?
That was very white.
Yeah, that's chilling, actually. I'm just scared myself.
Fantastic.
It's chilling. Eddie Murphy used to make a lot of jokes about white people voices, although I thought his white people voice sounded kind of full of gravitas. Maybe that's just me. In any case, we're going to get into some of the election results that came in through the primaries. Some Mike Lindell crash out. That's kind of funny. The gal that we talked about yesterday, Hung, did not make it, but she gave him a run for the money. Looks like the sort of more establishment type candidate. Guy has a decent background. We'll kind of look into Crowley's situation in Wisconsin, and the odds are heavily in favor that he will beat the 68-year-old guy who looks like he's doing a reverse mortgage commercial. He's younger. He's a father. He has children. Kind of the thing that you'd expect. He kind of sounds like an old Democrat if you actually read some of the stuff that he's suggesting in his policy statement. So we'll get into all that. And then there's this thing that I cannot shake, and it is the thing that I think broke this country. And we can trace things back to kind of jump off points. I'm on this kick of historical things, but they did that in 1985 back to 1955. That was the 30-year turn back the clock move from Back to the Future. And there was this idea that there was this historical jump off point when a bunch of things happened and it maybe had like some sort of cosmic significance. We can certainly see that there was cosmic significance about what happened in 2020 and 2021. And so the revelation to a lot of people that our institutions are corrupt, and we watched them act corruptly, and we watched them act corruptly in a way that was transparent to a number of people. And then a number of people also put their heads under the sand and just said, I don't want to be part of this. I think the same people, the same types of people that were terrified of just recognizing the situation was rigged against them in the end of Donald Trump's first term and going into Biden's term with the vaccine mandates and all that, the same people are now telling, I listened to a full X space full of them last night. It was like a gathering, a couple hundred people doing this bizarre MAGA ritual where they went through the 20 core promises to the American people and they rated it semi-fairly, I guess. They were trying to make excuses for Donald Trump. Whenever it wasn't a win on any of those 20 promises, then the excuse was that it was somebody else's fault. And at the end of it, only one of these people, who's a longtime DC insider and a political reporter, was like, yeah, he gets a D. Best case scenario, like a 65. By my rating, he gets a 45, maybe a 50. So that's a failing grade. I think 65 is a failing grade where I came from too. But they were like, yeah, maybe a D. And then everyone else was like, yeah, I give him a B or a C plus. Like, he's doing okay. It's passable. I'm watching a slow motion car accident where I can see that people refuse to accept the absolute failure of what's happening. And they're acting like it's going to be okay. And I don't know if they're just going to continue to cope with this and let reality run over them and they'll just act like it didn't happen, or if they're going to get destroyed and there's going to be this massive fallout that happens sometime between November and January of next year. I guess we'll see. It's disconcerting to watch people refuse reality in the same way it was disconcerting to watch people refuse reality while we were living under the COVID stuff. Because it just seems so obvious to those of us that are watching. It's like, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be given special knowledge. You don't have to go and pray for the gift of foresight or prophecy. Like, you could just look and say, this is not working. This is obviously a scam. And so many people around you that you have to look at yourself and go, am I insane? Or is the entire world going nuts? And it feels like the entire world might be going nuts. And there's some instinct that may be the case too. All right. Got a new sponsor to bring on today. We're going to talk about my friends over at Heavy Barrel Shampoo. Guys, there's a link in the show description. This is a men's shampoo for starters. Okay. Heavy Barrel, like a machine gun heavy barrel. It's heavybarrelshampoo.com/KYLE. Make sure you guys see the name Kyle at checkout and you'll save 10%. If you get 3 or more, you're going to get free shipping. It's a reasonable price shampoo. I've got it right here sitting on the desk, actually. So here's the one that I've got 2 of these right now. So we'll probably need another one. It's an easy thing to throw in your gym bag. Here's the deal. I'm a simple guy when it comes to hair stuff. You guys may not know this, but like every day, basically, I go and I just put water in my hair and I flick it. And then like, that's it. Like, I never wanted to be a person that spent a bunch of time on primping. The least amount of time that I can spend on grooming and hygiene rituals is what I want to do because I've got other things I care about, and that's not it. I'd rather be like cleaning a gun than trying to figure out whether or not my hair is done right. A couple things that are nice about this one. It's got some extracts in there that makes sense. There's pumpkin seed. That seems like something my wife would buy. In fact, we have pumpkin seed at my house. The ingredients are listed on the back. You can see what they use. They're not using any artificial fragrances. It's made in the United States. There's an American flag right on there. That's helpful to me. I'm one of these guys that, like, if a choice comes up and I can buy something that's made here, I will. So this is one of them. Okay. And again, like I said, you get buy for 3, you're going to get the shipping free, plus you get the 10% off. I made sure that all worked out the other day. We had an issue with the website. It looks like it's good to go. But at the end of the day, the key thing that I like about this guy, and I'm not a complicated person, I like a shampoo that adds one extra value to me. Cleaning is expected. Lathering is expected. That all has to get done. When I use this shampoo in the morning, and when I was in the military, and also sometimes now, like, I'll take a shower in the morning when I cannot get out of bed and I just feel weak. There's a peppermint extract, and I guess there's rosemary and cedarwood in there, but the peppermint really stands out to me. It makes my eyes open up. And so before the first cup of coffee, if you're looking to just jump in the shower, throw hot water on your face, and then just shake off whatever the sleep. For some reason, sometimes I feel more tired after I wake up than I did after I laid down. Maybe you guys know the one I'm talking about. The peppermint in the eye, just in the area around my head, is a major win. So anyway, it reminds me of a shampoo I used to have when I was actually in the 90s when I was a kid. And it was something my mom bought. I have no idea. Some sort of botanicals things. This is a simple shampoo for men. It's called Heavy Barrel Shampoo. heavybarrelshampoo.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. Check it out. If you guys are inclined, if you want one for the gym bag, one for home, and like one for travel or whatever, then you got all your 3, or you got a backup. Take your pick. I'm kind of a buy bulk, get free shipping, and save money at the same time. So that's the way they're doing it. New company. It's under Max Maha is kind of the branding name, if my memory serves. And that kind of fits into some of the stuff we've been talking about here. So check them out. If you guys are so inclined, you're going to be hearing about them over the next month or so. I appreciate them jumping in as a sponsor. And If you guys are a simple person and you want a 2-in-1, it does, shampoo and condition. You don't have to do more than one step. I'm kind of that guy too. All right, let's get into today's program. We're going to start it right now. Our audience never fails to disappoint me, or not disappoint me, but to do exactly what I thought. Seraphin is promoting shampoos? Yeah, I'm like everybody else, guys. I clean my hair every once in a while. You'd be shocked to find out. I am the stinkiest gym guy that ever existed. Like when I go into the gym, I was actually by myself yesterday, so that was nice. And I'm sitting in there, and I just saw some kids sitting in the lobby. So the way that our HOA gym is set up, and I work out at our HOA gym right down the street from me, there's a lobby. It's also freezing cold in the lobby, which is super nice because it's 100 degrees outside, and then it's like 60 degrees in the lobby. It's 65 degrees in the cardio room where I was going and doing some uphill walks. I got 1,000 feet of vertical climb in a mile and just kind of got my body warmed up. And then I went and trashed myself in the circuit room. So it's dumbbells and it's kettlebells and it's a couple of pulling machines and stuff like that, and doing some flutter kicks, like hanging out on a bench. And I get so disgustingly sweaty that kids like in their teens look over and they're like, they're not sure if it's funny or if they're worried about me. So there was these like young kids, they were 14, 15 years old, and they're sitting in there and they're probably trying to make some girlies smile or something. There was some little girl sitting on the couch with them, and they're looking in, and I'm pouring sweat. And every time I do push-ups, like more sweat runs off the top of my head, and it just pools up to the point where I work out on a yoga mat because I don't want to trash the floors. I'm actually sort of like worried that I'm going to ruin the rubber floor below me. So I just leave this puddle where I'm working out, and my shirt comes out completely soaked, and it's disgusting. So anyway, and then I want to go and I just get all that stuff off. So I shower pretty much every day. Shampoo commercials. What are we doing here, Seraphin? All right, let's get into other silly things. The world is actually as silly as it's ever been in some ways, and you guys may have been tracking this thing. There's this guy named Royce White. I guess he left the NBA, and now he's a lady. And I uniquely identify with. I never had a fear of flying. I never had a claustrophobia. I never had like a worry that it was too tight in an aircraft or something like that. But I do understand the Royce White instinct to point out stupidity and absurdity. And so there's this question, and it's the women who are running the NBA or the WNBA, which apparently people do watch, even though they've stopped throwing the dildos, which was really the best part of the WNBA. For some reason, they stopped throwing the dildos. And I wish that they would go back to that because that was a really fun game. If you guys remember, there was a betting market, right? And you could bet like what color the next floppy silicon penis that was going to be thrown on the court was. And then like people were throwing green, and then they were throwing green. I don't know if they're patting people down now or if they're putting them through a dildo detector or whatever, but I missed that. That was like my favorite part of the WNBA, and I don't watch any of it. So anyway, the instinct to say everything is stupid, everything is ridiculous. The thing that you're doing is ridiculous. So I'm going to point it out. It's actually a logical argument. It's called the reductio ad absurdum. You reduce the argument to the point of absurdity. And so if you can't figure out what makes a woman, if you can't decide, oh, this is a female, this is a male, and there's a big difference, and biologically, like they're born with different bits and their chromosomes are different, and you can see based on size and muscle density and tissue, and if you can't figure that out, if that's confusing to you, or if you have a politics that says you have to recognize that some men who are mentally ill can represent themselves to be women, and we have to accept them because we're trying to make everybody feel great, well, then you open up this door for absurdity. And I experienced that same absurdity when I was in the federal government. This is in 2016. In June of 2016, I go to the FBI Academy, and this is after 2+ years of them doing a background check on me and interviewing people everywhere I went, getting my medical records, which was itself just kind of a weird moment. I had this thick stack of medical records from the military. Every year we'd do this, like they called it like a class 3 flight physical. So they would do all the things. We were there at the doctor's office for at least a day, sometimes 2 days. And they're checking all the things from blood to your EKGs, and they're doing, vision tests and all this stuff. And so I had this huge record. And then they're like, we need all your records from before that. And one of the things that they had in the military is that I was one time asked to go and speak to a psychologist on my way out the door. I don't know if they do this to everybody now, but it was probably a good idea. So they sent me to this poor woman who had a PhD in psychology. She was at the Flight Medical Center for the base in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Kirtland Air Force Base. And she called me up. I hadn't spoken to this woman in I don't know, 8 years. I think I got out of the military in 12. So this is like 2016, just before they take me to the FBI. I get this phone call from the flight medical clinic at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. And it's this lady who I talked to one time for like an hour. And if I remember, she was just like, what's going on? Like, why are you here? And I was like, I don't know. My first sergeant told me I had to come talk to you. And she was like, why did he want me to talk to you? And I was like, oh, because I'm really angry all the time. And she was like, what are you angry about? And I was like, what do you got, lady? Like, I'm pissed off all the time. I'm just a pissed off dude. That's just the nature of it. I'm pissed off because I didn't get to deploy. I'm pissed off because of the way that this training has gone down. I'm pissed off that I seem to have wasted a couple years of my life busting my ass and I don't get to go to this mission. So whatever. And I'm just explaining it to her. And she was like, oh, like, do you have thoughts of violence? And I was like, everything about me is a thought of violence. Are you nuts? Like, you're talking to people in the military. They signed up to do bad things to bad people. I thought, wasn't that the whole deal? So in any case, we go through this whole bit. She was like, well, there's FBI agents here and they want to take your medical records. And I go, yeah, I know. And she was like, they have a piece of paper that you signed saying that I can give over your medical records. And I was like, right, do that. Give the medical records over. And she was like, are you sure you want me to turn them over? And I was like, what the hell did you even write in those things? Yeah, like, turn them over. I don't get this job if you don't turn them over. But I'm laughing at the fact that she's over here. Like, I have no idea what that woman wrote. I have no idea what the FBI has from that psych file. I've never even seen that psych file. It's a 1 hour interview. I sat and talked to a complete stranger saying things that I would probably say to you guys on a podcast. And so anyway, we had this little moment. They take it in. And so they've done all this work, and that's my point. They sent FBI agents out to hospitals that had my records, to the military places. I turned over all the things from the VA, blah, 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 blah. Huge stacks of medical records, and I'm 35 or 36 years old at the time, so whatever that involves. And then I get to the FBI Academy, and I'm sitting there, and they're like, everybody has to fill out this thing. And we pull up this stupid government website. It was called HR Source. I still remember that. And they want you to fill out this self-identification survey. And it says, please check, like, it's your name, it's your social security number, it's all your personal identifiers, your date of birth. Those are all pre-filled in. And then you get to just, like, I guess, make things up as you go. And so I'm running down and it says, are you a male or a female? And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I just spent 2.5 years. You've spent $100-something thousand on salaries of people running around doing background investigations into me. And now you're going to put a questionnaire in front of me asking, are you a male or are you a female? This is before the kind of transgender madness really kicked off, at least to my awareness. But maybe it was already at the FBI. So they give you a click box, like it's a radio box, one or the other. And I was like, female. 100%. I did that. And then it says, are you homosexual? Yes, no, decline to state. And I was like, decline to state. It's none of your business. And then it says, are you a transgender? Yes, no, decline to state. And I was like, none of your business. Decline to state. I mean, it was the dumbest thing that I'd ever seen. They already knew everything about me. They already had all the information on me. And now you're asking me this stupid question, which I thought was kind of like a joke. I mean, this tells you something. This isn't the first week that I'm in the FBI. And I'm sitting here and I was like, this place is a cartoon. Why would they ask me this stuff? Like, they obviously want silly answers. And then they're like, fill out all of your genetic background. And I'm like, white Caucasian. And then there was a spot for Native American. I'm like, yep, I'm from here. I'm a native to America. Bloop. I clicked those things too. And so then there was a couple of other little demographic type questions. I can't remember what they were, but they weren't really relevant. And then it's like, submit, boop, gone off. And then that was it. It was like the first week. And then we go through all the training and you do the shooting and you do the grappling stuff and you do the academic nonsense. And then you graduate and you get your badge and gun, you go out to your job. And so I go to my first physical fitness test and I'm sitting there on the first physical fitness test and I'm wearing high socks. Right? Tube socks. Some of you guys have seen that some of the FBI's guys were doing this. I was the only one doing it in my class. And then when I got out, I wore the high socks all the way up over my calves. High socks equals high motivation. This is just kind of a joke. I put on a little backpack with water in it. And I put in a little speaker in there. Because like when you're in the academy, you're running and you just are running for time and there's no music. And I was like, oh, I'd rather listen to music. In fact, I'd rather make everybody listen to my music. I wonder if I can get La Isla Bonita on here for the entire 1.5 miles on the loop. So we're going to go run. And I go and I do my run, and then you sit down and then you do sit-ups and then you do push-ups. So it's a run, sit-ups, and push-ups, and that's your annual fitness test, if memory serves. I think there's a sprint in there too. So anyway, And by the way, I'm wearing silkies, so Ranger panties, super tiny short with really, really high socks and like a regular t-shirt. And when we finish, they are like, okay, sit-ups, everybody like pair up, whatever. And they're like, if you have any questions about how many sit-ups you need to accomplish, you have like 60 seconds to do them, let us know. And then we'll read off the fit standard for your age, because it's done by age. Once you get out of the academy, it's not a standard for everybody. Your age, so from 30 to 39 is one category, and then 40 to 49, and then 50 up. And so, you know, whatever your age, and then your gender, if you're a male or female. And so they get over and they're like, hey, Seraphin, you good? And I was like, no, how many sit-ups do I got to do? And they're like, 34. And I was like, well, I identify as a female. And they're like, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 36. And they're like, oh, whatever, Seraphin, like 34, bro. And I was like, I identify as a female. And they're like, they laugh and they walk off. And then I just started going like, I'm gonna sue you, mother effers. I'm gonna, you know, and I'm doing my sit-ups. And so I just tell them I'm gonna sue them. And then we did that again the next year. And I said the same thing. And they just ignored me about the female thing. And that continued on. And then 2020 happened. And in 2020, they said, don't worry about showing up and testing for your physical fitness. We're just going to have you write it down on a piece of paper. We'll just ask you what it is, and then you report it. It's too dangerous for us to put a fitness counselor out there to actually record the information. And in 2021, I got the fitness results. I hadn't even been paying attention to this thing. I just like filled it out. I was good to go. I knew I was in the standard, good to go. And at that point in time, I'm 38 and then going into 39, I think. And in 2020 and in 2021, the FBI switched something in their systems and they rated me as one of the top female athletes in the entire FBI in the most competitive category from 30 to 39. I was like in the top 5 for all the different categories. And I was the only one that I saw that was like in the top 5 for all the other ones. There was one other person who looked like it might be a dude based on name. And then it turned out that that dude was actually a chick and she was just kind of like a stud athlete. The only thing that I wasn't a super stud at was the distance run, because I weighed 180 pounds and the women in the FBI weighed 120 pounds. So I was moving 60 pounds more weight at distance, but I out sprinted almost everybody. I definitely out pushed up them. I out sit up them. So I was one of the fittest female athletes in the FBI in my last 2.5 years that I was there. And that's how stupid things are. And so this reduction of absurdity where you realize like how stupid the system is when the system tells you, Royce White's doing this right now. And he's not the only one. There's a couple of other ones, whatever his name is, Cantor or something, doing the same thing. I saw a picture of a dude who was shirtlessly lifting. He looks just like Brittany Griner, just jacked and lifting weights. So here's a little taste of WNBA absurdity. This is the absurdity of our time.
I realized my fear of flying really wasn't a fear of flying. It was the transgender trapped inside of me, caged inside of me, that gave me an aversion to small spaces. I think there are plenty of people out there who have
that makes perfect sense.
A transgender trapped deep down inside of them. And so they think they're claustrophobic.
No. Every one of you do. Let's just be.
Yeah, they think they're claustrophobic. Not really claustrophobic. It's the transgender that's trapped.
Excellent troll. Look at the hair. This is before the hair.
Oh, earlier this week, I made the announcement. I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman for purposes of basketball, professional basketball. So I'll be declaring for the WNBA draft in 2027 as well. I mean, I think I'd be unstoppable. But I'm a team first guy. I'm a pass first kind of player. I do the little things. I led my team in all 5 major stat categories at Iowa State University. So I do a little bit of everything. I'll do whatever the coach needs me to do. I'll do whatever the girls need me to do. I think the WNBA could come out and make a definitive statement about guys with a pair of balls playing in the women's association. But hey, that'd be probably too much like right. So, and I don't want to be discriminated against. No, I want fair treatment. I'm a young black, hopefully United States senator. That would like a fair chance to participate as a sometimes identifying as a transgender woman athlete.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, if we're going to be living in the upside down silly world, then you just do this. This is super fun. I, as someone who has done this already, I recommend it. I think this is the way forward. And weirdly enough, he may get a chance to play ball. I became the first transgender FBI agent to be canceled, as far as I know. over a lot of my opinions. And by the way, I actually said, I was asked about that directly. I had a boss sit me down and he was like, Seraphin, he's like, there's something wrong here on your AFT, the agent fitness test. He's like, your AFT, they ranked you as a woman. And I was like, yeah, I know. I identify as a woman at work. And I looked like this, at least with this beard, maybe more. And he goes, and I just looked at him like there was something wrong with him. And I was like, is there a question? Do you have a concern? What are we doing here? Ryan, what do you need from me? You know, just deadpanned him. And I've never said otherwise. And he was like, but what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. Sometimes when I'm at this job, I just really feel like a bitch. It's just kind of bitch work. And I just shrugged my shoulders and I just walked off for purposes of work, just like Royce White, who may go by Joyce. Maybe that'd be a good one, right? Or Roysha. I don't know. For the purposes of playing basketball, he identifies as a person who sometimes plays basketball as a woman. And I felt the same way about the job that I was doing, especially the way that they had treated me towards the end of it. It was like, yeah, this is pretty obvious. Pretty sure I'm being discriminated against. What do you do when the world is that dumb? You vote for Jeff Johnson. He's the name you know. I like the Eddie Murphy doing the Jewish voice. So we're living in that world right now. Senator Darlene Graham. By the way, she was Darlene Nordone just a minute ago, just a freaking second ago. She was Ms. Darlene Nordone, and the Graham was like hidden. And now she's Darlene Graham because of, obviously it's the name you know. We're running on name recognition alone. And her connection is that her likely closeted homosexual, now deceased brother who died of a fatal war boner, potentially fatal war boner. I don't know. We don't have full evidence on this. He had the same name. So she's going to do that. And we have a primary that's going to go to a runoff because the top two contenders and the top vote getter in South Carolina is the sister of the dead guy. And her political career started a month ago when her brother died. And until then, she was thought of by no one, ever. No one cared. Nobody was like, you know who's got a kind of a dark horse shot at being the next senator or running against Lindsey is his sister, Darlene Graham Nordone. Graham Nordone. Graham, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. Graham, the family member of Graham, will face Ralph Norman in the August 25th runoff for the party's nomination. Okay. She was appointed to fill a spot because her brother died. And in 30 days, she was the top vote getter endorsed by Donald Trump. Now, it turns out being endorsed by Donald Trump is not just a guaranteed win. But in some areas it is. It's not in, let's say, Minnesota. There are limits to what we can do with name recognition, it turns out. Graham was appointed by South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. And remember, that had nothing to do with what anybody else wanted. Donald Trump didn't weigh in on that. That was just a decision McMaster made on his own. That was done in July, and we're now in August. And now she was pitched as someone who was going to be a placeholder. It was going to be an honorarium. It was going to be a thing to just honor the memory. Go ahead and put Ralph Norman up here. It was just a chance to honor the memory of her brother and fill out the last term because it's what Lindsey would have wanted. And Lindsey would have also wanted the complete bombing and destruction of Iran and possibly Cuba and maybe Turkey or Syria or whatever other things that he was thinking about bombing. Lindsey Graham, he had desires as a man with no offspring who died in office of a war boner. And it's only right that we honor his memory. So before his body is cold, there's a base in South Carolina that is named after him, as if the Air Force didn't, needed more reasons to be called gay. And as someone who came out of the Air Force, it's a real burden that we carry, those of us that have been there. Nobody wants to be told you're gay just because you were in the Air Force. And now we've got to deal with a bunch of guys that are stationed at Joint Base Lindsey Graham, which is the gayest place that you could say. You're like, where you got orders to? It's like, Joint Base Charleston? And they'll be like, oh, it's called Lindsey Graham now, isn't it? You freaking Air Force homos? And we're going to be like, yep. No, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's named after that guy, the Ladybug. It's Joint Base Ladybug, I think. So, very exciting. There'll be a Democrat who's going to be in there. Unlikely that she will win. This is South Carolina. So we can basically expect that the name you know, the Jeff Johnson. And again, this tactic was tried in 1992. The difference between the Jeff Johnson, Eddie Murphy character and the guy who had died in office prior to Eddie Murphy running for office was that they weren't related. And so it was a hustle, but it was kind of like a long shot, grassroots. We're going to just try to bootstrap this campaign and see if we can pull it off with just me and my hustler friends. That was the kind of fun thing about the Distinguished Gentleman. A con man goes to Washington, D.C., and he thought that he was a professional con man because that's how he made a living, but like kind of scamming people. And then he realizes that the professional scammers are actually in Washington, D.C. What we saw in South Carolina just recently was a professional con job done by professional con artists. And it is a little bit, it's like minor leagues or T-ball leagues or whatever to the big leagues. Kind of like the Trump administration has been to the Biden administration related to corruption. The Biden administration came out there and, they made us all feel really bad. We're like, oh my God, these guys are out there handing buckets of cash to the kid. He's out there trading on his daddy's name. He's going out and getting paid for jobs he's not qualified for. He's a crackhead. He's boning his brother's widow. This is just uber gross. They're selling influence and you're like, okay, horrible. And the Trump administration comes in and they're like, excuse me, but hold my single malt scotch. Boom. Let me show you what real scams look like. You were getting $83,000 a month. We're going to get $83 million a quarter per family member or whatever the hell is going on there. We're going to execute $3+ billion in crypto rug pulls in the holding company. You've never even seen it. So sometimes when you see this stuff, it makes you go like, it kind of feels like Donald Trump insulting other people. He's kind of doing that projection. He got caught saying this about Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been diagnosed with cancer, and then apparently his cancer is worse than the original cancer. I assume that he's basically almost dead. I don't know if anybody else thought that, but he seemed like he was almost dead when he was president. So Donald Trump weighed in on Joe Biden. Now, here's what I want you to hear. Listen to this, and you tell me if it doesn't sound like if you were to have somebody else say this, it could be exactly about Donald Trump. Think about the viciousness that even people like Lindsey Graham used to say. If you're on his good side, he's really nice to you. If you're not, he's vicious. He's mean. He's kind of mediocre as a person. He has been kind of mediocre in his tenure as president. For everybody that wanted to get whatever Trump 1.0 is, capture that sort of lightning in a bottle and then move it forward, we kind of did get that, didn't we? Because didn't he just kind of suck for the last, year of the 4 years? The first Donald Trump presidency had its ups and downs. But the craziest thing is that the people who didn't recognize that the man got steamrolled by the establishment, got steamrolled by the medical industry, by the pharmaceutical industry, by the Washington insiders. And then the claim was, well, he just didn't know enough. He just didn't know enough about how DC worked. How would you not be the most skeptical, concerned person walking into that job if you'd been a billionaire business person who had basically been on the donating end of getting politicians to do what you wanted for your whole life? You didn't know how it worked, and you couldn't make good hiring decisions despite the fact that your whole claim to fame is that you ran a show about where you made hiring decisions. It was a reality TV show. Anyway, listen to him talk about Biden, and then imagine how much he's basically talking about himself.
He's been a sort of a moderate person over his lifetime, not a smart person, but a somewhat vicious person, I will say. If you feel sorry for him, don't feel so sorry because he's vicious. What he did with his political opponent and all of the people that he hurt a lot of people, Biden. And so I really don't feel sorry for him. He's been a...
That's how a lot of people are going to feel when Donald Trump kicks off. they're going to say he was kind of gross and he was vicious and he was kind of a mediocre person that really stepped outside of his ability. And, you know, God help us if we find what our limits are. You know, when you step up to and find your limits, hopefully it's not in a really public forum like being the president of the United States of America, where you are found unequal to the task. You know, some of us have tried a lift in the gym, for example, and you're like, oh, I bet I could lift this. And if you're lucky, it's with a spot. There's somebody else there to go like, nah, brother, that's not for you. And they pull it off you and you're good. The worst case scenario, well, the second worst case scenario is that you have like a safety bar. And so you lift it up and maybe you're doing a squat and there's some safety arms, or maybe you're doing a bench press and you get it and you're like, it's not going to go any higher. And you just kind of shrink down and you slide out from underneath that bar and you're like, okay. And maybe somebody saw it and maybe someone didn't. But the worst case scenario is that a couple of people in the gym saw that you attempted something you were unable to do. The worst case scenario is that it actually kills you. And maybe the worst case scenario is that it actually kills you in front of a bunch of people, right? And I feel like that's kind of where we're going with this, is that this is going to not just kill his presidency and his legacy, it's going to maybe even kill, I mean, it's going to actually kill the country because we're getting some really awful stuff out of it. And we're getting this instinct that we cannot vote our way out of it, which is another kind of like eyes open moment for the same people who saw the insanity of COVID. For those of us that are on board with what I'm saying, the message is not that we didn't want Donald Trump to succeed or that we hope that he would fail. That's ridiculous. The message is we put all of our eggs in the basket of the guy that said he was going to do all these things, because no politician had come forward and said, I'm going to do all these outrageous and radical things. And I know what I'm up against. I've been there before. They've already tried to kill me. They've tried to screw me. They tried to bankrupt me. They tried to use the system against me. And I'm going to go in there and disrupt the system so that we are going to get something, an outcome that is favorable for all people. And we're going to try to roll the clocks back to pre-1990 America, which is what he was claiming. And I know he was claiming that because he used Ronald Reagan's campaign line, Make America Great Again. He used a concept that was, 40 years old? So I know what he was aspiring to, and so did everybody else. Now, if that person who claims to be this big disruptor, who had one shot at the apple, got to see, look at, how many times have you seen somebody step up, they've seen something, it's like, that's the first time they've ever faced that pitcher. It's not surprising you didn't knock it out of the park. And then one of two things happen. Either they get beaten down by the pitcher because the pitcher has their number, or they're like, now I see what the delivery is, now I see what my pitch looks like, and I'm going to knock it out of the park. We thought Donald Trump was going to knock it out of the park. That's the whole point. That's the whole Agenda 47. These are very strong claims. And they are very disruptive to what we hoped was going to be disrupted, which is evil. And what do we get? Vote for Jeff Johnson, the name you know, except Jeff Johnson is actually the sister of maybe one of the worst people representing the slimiest filth that we ever saw in the Senate. And we've got Brandon Gill, who talks a good game, but he's in there because his father-in-law is a thought leader in the conservative movement. Dinesh D'Souza, I told that to somebody the other day and they didn't even realize this. I said this to a political reporter. I was like, you recognize that we're starting to get Nepo in-laws where people who are related to a famous person are able to parlay that into political success. Oh, you're a friend of Daniel Bongino? You were his producer? And your father is the secretary of, your father-in-law is the secretary of transportation? You'd make a great congressman, 26-year-old guy who's never had a serious job, who's been in charge of nothing your whole life. We'd love to see what you can do. You're attractive. You've got a pretty wife. You'll have a pretty family. You'll be a great another Brandon Gill. How many of those can we populate into the Congress and still say, like, we're a serious nation? And that is nothing mean about those people individually. It's what they represent. They're representing the most status quo thing in the world, that the people who've already had a shot are now going to give their shot to someone that is directly related to them or that their child is married to. And that's not a particularly American thing. It may be something we've done for a long time, but it's the opposite of what people aspire to as the greatness of America. The greatness of America is anybody can wake up, pull themselves up by their bootstraps because they don't have ridiculously expensive housing costs. There are opportunities where the ultra wealthy corporations are not getting bailed out with our tax dollars, so they're allowed to fail, and we're allowed to come in with novel ideas, be better, faster, smarter, more aggressive, more willing to risk things, and take a better idea and take it all the way up to the top and then do anything in this country. That's the promise of America. And I don't think that's where we're at today. And we're proving that you can't even get somebody from the outside to come in and run for office unless you are actually somehow related to that blobby thing that exists in Washington, D.C. It's like, oh, your father-in-law is a cabinet secretary? You'd make a wonderful congressperson. Said nobody ever that was being serious. But says everybody that's corrupt and thinks, well, I already know what the trigger points are on that, and I know that they can get you to fall in line. Yuck. Absolutely yuck. All right, shake that off for a second here. Guys, if you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. I'd appreciate that. Give us a like on YouTube as well. YouTube, better per capita for liking, just saying. You may hear an ad on the audio platform, so if you have to adjust your audio downward, be aware, be capable, turn it down if you need to. You may hear an ad right there on Apple, iHeartRadio, and Spotify right now. I'll just make a funny look at you. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you find the show on Spotify. More and more people going over there. I think it's a better user experience. You can use comment. You can respond to comments. That's kind of cool. Instead of just leaving a one-time review, if you guys want to weigh in on what's going on in the show, you can leave your thoughts. By the way, tell me what the heck you're talking about. Some of you guys are like, that's not even true. It's like, what's not even true? They'll be like, I totally agree with you, Seraphin. It's like, about what specifically? We did this for an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Give me some context clues, man. Help me out here. I also find out some of you guys are really struggling in that space, and you're empathizing with the message that we were supposed to have something. And Make America Affordable, by the way, was a really, really powerful message to people that were worried about what their money looked like. End inflation and make America affordable again, which, by the way, gets done by deporting the largest number in American history. One of the craziest things I heard last night, listening to these Trumpy guys, maybe the craziest thing I've heard in a while. If you deported 20 million people from the United States, you would crash our economy. That might be true, but I want you to just take for a second and consider if deporting 20 million criminal illegal aliens is enough to destroy the nature of our country, if it takes the system and it brings it down because there's not enough people to suspend whatever has to go on, is that not a damning indictment against what we've got going on here in this nation, that we are propped up by illegal aliens and that basically fraud and scams and illegal aliens are what makes America stay afloat? That is such a wild, like, it may even be true, but it's so wild. Maybe you guys have had this experience too. You ever had a beater car? I used to have some beater cars. I've had some like not very nice cars. I had a beater truck too. And maybe you guys were like me as well. This is kind of how I feel like America is right now. You bought it with the best of intentions. You put a lot of effort and work into it. You made sure it ran. When it was, struggling, you gave it a thing of sea foam or something, or you went and tuned it up, whatever. But the one thing you never want to do with your beater ass car is take it to a car wash and pressure wash it. Right? You don't want to pressure wash your beater car. And whether you know it intuitively in your head or whether you actually think it explicitly, the reason you don't pressure wash your beater car is you're kind of sure that if you do, then things are going to fall off said beater car. You're like, I think it's possible that the only thing holding this rust bucket together is the dirt and the lack of me hitting it with high pressure water, and it might just fall apart on me. I might lose a door. It might be something small. I might just lose like a tail lamp. But if America cannot deport 20 million people that don't belong here, which represents less than 10% of our population, and in theory are doing the most menial jobs because they shouldn't have anything that's high paying, they should be living at the bottom of the subsistence layer. And by the way, they should be also, based on the way the numbers work, because the bottom 50% of taxpayers are not taxpayers at all. So if the bottom 50% includes 10, 20, 30, 40 million illegal aliens, if we have 350 million people, 175 million is the cap. 175 million people in this country are net receivers of tax benefits. That's kind of how that's supposed to work out. Just really, really fast math. Well, if we have 20 or 30 million of them that are just sucking it up illegally, it should actually be a net benefit. It might be kind of rocky in the first minutes where people are like, we have a bunch of open apartments and the prices are going to go down. It's like, that's okay. The prices can go down on apartments. The prices can go down on rental houses. The prices can go down on groceries. The prices and the congestion can go down on fuel and all the other things. That would be fine. The cost of educating our children should go down because the people who are contributing to it, more people are going to get more of what they paid for, and less people who have nothing involved should be gone. But yeah, like it would be rocky if you vaporized out. It's the joke from Boondock Saints. If you snap your fingers and all the illegal Mexican workers are gone, that's not who's constituting the illegals here. But the snap your fingers and they're all gone, then you can have a Coke. That's the joke. If you guys haven't seen Boondock Saints, watch it again. It's still fun. Wouldn't that be the way that it works? It would be rocky for a little while, and then the country would be fine. Because the people that are in that 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million people should not be high enough income that it actually matters. And we've already seen what happens when they stay home. When the Trump administration was doing what they claimed they were going to do, here's number one again, seal the border, got it. That's the tourniquet. They started doing the surgery to cut out the cancer. When they did so, deport the largest number of people in American history, or the largest deportation operation in American history. Theoretically, when they started executing whatever that plan looked like in the first couple months, they shut down traffic in Los Angeles and the commute hours were acceptable. The schools were empty because people were afraid of getting rolled up and Texas trebucheted over the border. So how many problems would be fixed? Would we be able to go back to something that looked more like what it used to look like 40, 50 years ago in this country? I don't know. But I know that I wanted to try it. I know that it felt like a good idea when we heard about it. I know I'm not the only one. Again, the thing that turned the clock back on this, the thing that made us kind of look into, hey, can this be done? Was this realization under COVID that we're being lied to at a tremendous level. We need a disruption. The sad thing is rather than disruption, what we got is just more bad policy. I'm going to talk big game, but I have no real strategy. I'm going to show you a story that I saw yesterday. This is dated yesterday morning, 4:11 a.m. That's an early time to put out a story. 1 year into Donald Trump's unprecedented deployment, the National Guard is entrenched in Washington, D.C. Now, why are they there? That's not what I meant to put up. Sorry. The reason they're there is because of one of the core promises. Number 11, which we don't talk about all the time, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., make them safe, clean, and beautiful again. That's number 11 on the top 20 list that Donald Trump ran on. And by the way, so did the rest of the Republicans. One of the great copes last night that I heard people say was, it's not Donald Trump's fault because the Senate and the House aren't acting the way that he wants them to. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when you're the president of the United States and you're a member of a political party, both of which check, Donald Trump checks that box. You are meant to be the guy who's in charge of said political party. You are thought of as being in charge of that political party. And if you can't get your party to do the things that you said you were going to go do and they ran on, that's actually on you. That's how the American people look at it. And that's why he has historically awful favorability ratings right now. I'll show you that in a second. But one of the things that we pointed out when people were like, oh, the National Guard, it's going to be good. It's going to be a net good. Why are you so negative? Why are you claiming it's a problem to send the surge of National Guardsmen in to try to secure an American city that's all beat up? Why are you so negative, Seraphin? I said it right away. I was like, I don't like tools being used for the wrong thing. We're a year into this game. They surged them in the summer and they claimed victory. The problem was never that you were using a tool to come in and stop crime in Washington, D.C., which has been marginally effective, let's say. The problem is how do you get the people in that city to solve the problem for themselves? There cannot be a federal solution to all the problems. And if you're supposed to be a Republican, the goal should be small government, not what is the biggest governmental thing we can do, the National Guard, the mobilization by the executive, the chief executive at the federal government level to bring people in to solve a problem. Then what? You have to change the culture of Washington, D.C., and they refuse to do it. The deployment is expected to cost $1.4 billion through the end of Donald Trump's term. That's just in Washington, D.C. So in addition to the entire budget of the D.C. Metro PD, which is one of the worst police departments I've ever heard of, hands down, I have nothing but contempt for DC Metro PD. Not every officer individually. I met some nice guys there. But across the board, when I called people that I trusted in the federal government, which is not a ton of people, The answers came back to me. The DC Metro PD is too fat, too lazy, or too corrupt for anybody that we know to recommend if you have a problem with DC Metro PD. I couldn't find a single person that had a good point of contact that they actually had any faith in. So how do you fix that? And it's not sending in a bunch of National Guardsmen from Georgia or from Texas to come and secure the place. Our nation's capital is a cesspool of crime at every level, from the highest levels where people are doing rug pulls for hundreds of millions of dollars and doing insider trading and other scandalous shit, to the guys that are just like shooting each other over an 8-ball on the street and all the ugly stuff that goes in between, child sex trafficking. We've been in, let's call it within a 2-mile radius of I'm trying to think of exactly how close it was. It's probably within a 2-mile radius of the nation's capital, and seen underage child sex brothels that we've interrupted when I was there in DC. Child sex trafficking happening within 2 miles of the Capitol. That's actually not even shocking to anybody who's listening to this. You're like, yeah, obviously. I mean, we know that they covered up the Epstein stuff, right? We know that there was a counterintelligence investigation. We're not hearing anything about it in other nation states. So yeah, I mean, that doesn't shock you. But what I'm getting at is that the culture is so gross at every single level. You can't fix it by putting the National Guard in. And so everybody in the Democrat side is like, we need to make DC a state. In reality, we should make DC not even a thing where people live anymore. Just read a little bit of the story from ABC News. On August 3rd last year, after the assault and attempted carjacking of Edward Corstein, a 20-year-old programmer known online as Big Balls. Do you guys remember the Big Balls scandal that he went by that, which is funny for a 20-year-old? Who worked for Elon Musk's now defunct Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Remember that? Seraphin, when did you know there was a problem? Oh, maybe when they started shutting down the things that were doing the stuff that we said we wanted. It became a flashpoint for Donald Trump's argument that Washington, D.C. had spiraled out of control. 8 days later, he mobilized roughly 800 National Guards troops to the Capitol, an extraordinary use of military personnel on U.S. soil. And he cast the deployment in dire terms, describing the city overwhelmed by violence, disorder, and promising federal intervention would restore control, even as violent crime in Washington, D.C. had fallen to its lowest levels in 30 years, according to DOJ. Again, those numbers we found out were lies. The lies from the previous administration, because government is interested in giving numbers that are favorable to government. If you let the people who benefit from better numbers give you the numbers you get are going to be bullshit. Back to the Future reference again for you. I don't know why that just popped up, but I was thinking of my kids telling me they did something when I know they didn't. And you've all experienced that. You've been the kid or you've had the kid lie to you. Did you do that thing? No. Did you mow the lawn? Yeah, I mowed it day before yesterday. That's a good lie, because the day before yesterday, and if it had rained, maybe it like grew up a little bit. So maybe like some of those things that I see, like maybe you did mow it the day before. That's a plausible lie. I mowed it this weekend. It's Wednesday. Okay. You know when your kids are lying to you. Why would they lie? Because they have a vested interest in you believing that they're not going to get in trouble for it. They're not going to be the ones who are responsible for whatever the task that didn't get done. Hey, do you have really good crime statistics in Washington, D.C.? Police chief of DC Metro PD? Yes, we have very good. Almost the best numbers ever. Some of the best numbers you've ever heard, actually. That's what we have. And you're like, oh. Is that true? It's not true. Doesn't matter. I'm going to give you another version of that. Exact same thing. What if you were the president of the United States and you said you were going to bring down energy costs, and you said it over and over again, and you kept saying it to the point where people were like going like, this sounds really exciting. And then would you continue to say like, listen, guys, we blew it. We screwed up, or would you hold on to it? This was Donald Trump this is the first year, I want to say. This is him talking about gas prices. This, I think, is in January. I think this is end of December or beginning of January of this year.
The average price of gasoline nationwide is down 60 cents a gallon just from a short while ago. And remember this. Remember this.
Yeah.
We had to make this detour. We had to go to Iran. You can't let them blow up the Middle East and then us, if that's possible. We would have gotten them before, but they would have blown up Israel. They would have blown up the entire Middle East. You can't let that. You want to see a bad economy? That's a bad economy. So,
guys, You can't let them blow up the Middle East. Okay, even if they were going to blow up the Middle East, we would have stopped them first, but we didn't let them go to that. And then, by the way, Israel, just Israel, and then let you know that. So anyway, we had to make this detour.
But remember that.
So this is actually not from January, is it? That comes in. This is the beginning of March.
Our oil in the middle of this conflict was less than it was for sleepy Joe Biden, and we're putting out a fire. Biden, Clinton, Bush, all of them. Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of Barack Hussein Obama? None of them did anything.
This is your youngest child saying that none of your other children did the work. They didn't mow the lawn either. And so even though they were asked to do the job and the other children are already out of the house, it's actually the older children who didn't mow the lawn either. That's whose fault it is.
Obama gave them $1.7 billion in green cash. Remember, on a 747, they flew over piles of cash, 1.7.
Okay, red meat, piles of cash. Anybody else's fault, not mine. By the way, we're hearing some reports now that to get out of this, it's going to cost $100 billion a year to turn over the strait. That's how much the Iranians might collect. They were collecting nothing beforehand. All right. This is when he was asked a little bit later on, hey, but the prices are now up, and you used to bitch about the other guy having prices. What do you got to say about that?
On Iran, but first one that affects Americans here at home, gas prices. Today they hit $4.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon. And they'll become tumbling down. And stock prices were up today almost to a record because they know two things. Number one, we have a safe country. We had to take a little detour because we had a madman named Khomeini who sadly is no longer with us.
Okay. So as soon as we leave, we're good. That should be fine. And then, does someone just not tell him what's going on anymore? This is apparently from August 6th. Listen to the numbers he's touting. The numbers he's touting come from maybe, although they were disputed at the time, maybe some things that happened in January. It's now August, and he's taking January numbers prior to going into Iran, and it's going to come back down again. Don't worry about it. Like, ignore what's going on now. Think about the best that I ever did. That's what it could be. Apparently. I did some checking on this. CBS News reported on this 5 days ago, so that seems to fall into the category that this happened on the 6th. I couldn't believe that he actually said this in the White House on the 6th of August in 2026.
We had oil down to less than two in many places like Iowa. Oil was down to, gasoline was down at numbers that people hadn't seen in years. $1.85, $1.95. So it passed 2 cents. I was in Iowa at a stop, and we had $1.95, another one, $1.85 a gallon. And we'll see those days pretty soon again, based on everything I see, as soon as the war ends. And I think it's going to end pretty soon.
Does anyone else think that? Apparently, it's already been over. We've won it a bunch of times. I've been paying attention to this thing. Maybe you guys have too. So I'm not sure what he's talking about there. And I struggle when he says it's going to be over soon, because it's clear. You're clearly not telling us the truth. This is how I arrived at my, I don't think the National Guard is the solution in Washington, D.C. the day that it happened. Number one, you were dealing with a guy who has a history of fibbing, would be the nice way of saying it. He exaggerates, he ignores the inconvenient, or he outright lies. So when he's like, yeah, this is just a temporary solution, I was like, what's your exit strategy? This is the only question I didn't see ever answered. What is the exit strategy for taking 800 people from all over the country and securing a city? By the way, they haven't secured all of it. I guarantee you, having not been in Washington, D.C. in years, that I could go there with any one of you right now, and I could find you a neighborhood, and I could do it in half an hour where you wouldn't want to walk on the street in broad daylight. Guaranteed I can find that street for you in Washington, D.C. with 800 National Guardsmen, because 800 people is enough to just handle a small area. Well, how do you know that, Seraphin? Like, who the hell are you? Well, I was a guy that was living in Virginia doing security in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 2020. I saw what happened when they tried to secure Washington, D.C. in 2020. Do you know where they secured? The areas only around where power was. It was around the National Mall. It was around Congress. It was around the FBI headquarters buildings. It was D.C. Northwest. That's the only areas. Because then when we were done doing our security details, wandering around with rifles and body armor and all the other dumb shit, whenever we were done with that, then we went home, went to sleep, got up at 3 a.m., and then drove into the ghetto in Anacostia and D.C. Southeast and so on, and we patrolled and watched drug dealers and bank robbers and all the other stuff that was going on that was evil. I saw what happens when you secure parts of D.C. It's still only going to be the ones that are nice, where the people that have some money. 800 people is not enough to secure very much of D.C. because they're going to come on in shifts. They can't be on at all times, and they had no exit strategy. It was very obvious to me. And now what you've done is you've told Democrats that one of the things you could do is use the National Guard to get your policy agenda through. That's one of the things that's on the table for you. You can let them use the same tools because that's how this works. When you open a door and you make something normal, and now you've normalized the idea that we'd have National Guards troops wandering around in D.C. for a whole year. That was scary when Biden did it, to shut down everything as they came in after January 6th and stayed for the first 6 or 8 months worth of his term. I was like, oh my God, what if they militarize Washington, D.C.? And anybody's dissent will be crushed. Anybody's ability to speak out against their government, crushed. It's a real thing when you have to drive through checkpoints and you think, I can't even protest my own government here. We've now created 2 back-to-back administrations that have activated the National Guard for political purposes without an obvious win and no real obvious way to extract them. So that's why this story is so important, at least to me. It worries me. And then it worries me when people lie. It worries me when the chief executive of this country gets out and lies while he's actively there. I'm not talking about ignoring fact. I'm talking about making things up. We played this for you yesterday. I'll play it again. And then he was asked about it again. This is a discussion by Donald Trump about how much we are winning in Iran. It's going to be wrapped up in a few days, he just said on the 6th. Now he says this.
Give us an estimate of when you think the Strait of Hormuz will be...
Well, it's open now. We're taking a lot of shit. It's open now. Look. The only one that has control of the Strait of Hormuz right now is the United States Navy. We have a blockade that's been infallible. It's a steel wall. And we let people in that we want to let in, and those people come in, and they've been coming in and they're going out. So it's actually open now. We do not let them go into Iran. They're not admitted into the Strait to go to Iran. But it's open for others. Now, a little bit... complex because they will, on occasion, drop a mine, and we find the mines. You know, we've mine swept the entire strait, as you probably maybe heard, maybe you didn't hear, but we control the strait 100%. Now,
okay, the United States controls the strait 100%. Let's take him at his word. If the United States controls the strait 100%, are we also responsible for people being killed? Strait of Hormuz traffic falls to new low as Iran-backed Houthis kill 6 people in the Red Sea. Well, that's not the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, I got it. Roger that. It's the new low because ships have transponders. You can track where the ships are in the same way you can track where aircraft are. This is like not hidden secret information. You don't need government satellites to know what's moving. So he just told you the United States is 100% in control of it. And it's an actual lie from the White House. In the same way he talked about a couple of days ago, I went and saw gas. Well, I don't know if he's like conflated. Maybe he's got that sort of old timers disease, as my dad likes to call it, the CRS, where you can't remember stuff. Maybe that's what's going on. Because he's conflating something that he said in January and he just keeps repeating it over and over again. Maybe because that was part of his campaign promise that you're going to see $2 a gallon gasoline in this country, which sounds great. It sounds halfway as good as when I was a kid. Because I remember, and I'm not that old, but at almost 45 years old, I recall filling up my gas for under $1 a gallon regularly. That was a common thing. High school, early college. It's like 78 cents a gallon, 85 cents a gallon. I lived in Texas. I lived in Oklahoma. It was relatively inexpensive for fuel. I remember when I paid $1 a gallon for the first time and I didn't like it. I was like, it's going to be $20 to fill this gas tank. That's 20 gallons. That's awful. Or $18, or whatever the heck it is. I'm going to normally have to pay 15, but I remember getting change for a 20 all the time and paying in cash on a regular basis because I didn't have a credit card because nobody had a credit card. That's within my memory, and I'm young enough. I have a 2-year-old daughter, almost 3. I have a 3-year-old baby child. So I'm a father of young children, and I remember gas costing less than $1 a gallon. And this guy said he was going to get $2 a gallon, which sounded pretty damn good. But he also says other things that I know to be a lie, like we're in charge of the Strait of Hormuz. And he didn't just say it there, not just in the White House. He's out there talking. This is from yesterday. This is from last night. Donald Trump asked this question on a tarmac, and his answer sounds insane to me. It sounds like a crazy person. He's either blatantly lying or he has no idea what's going on. And I don't know which one it is. It's possible that he has no idea what's going on. That's actually the scariest idea. And it's slightly less scary that he's lying to us because he thinks you're dumb enough to believe it. And apparently people do believe it. Here we go.
Short period of time. More people are working right now in the United States than ever before, and prices are dropping fast.
Guys, more people are working in the United States than ever before. That's factually untrue. And prices are dropping fast. That's nebulous and also false.
Iran is going fine.
Iran is going fine.
Just absolutely fine. We totally control the Strait of Hormuz. We have control over it. Nobody else, only us. Our Navy is unbelievable. And things are going great for our country. Go ahead.
Now they want to ask about the catering truck. They're like, it's going so well, sir, that we heard that you were almost killed and that you thought that the that Air Force One was going to be targeted by a missile. Can you talk about escaping in a catering truck? And he's like, oh, the whole clip is kind of hard to hear because it's only one side on the audio. Oh, I just do whatever the Secret Service tells me. I just go where they show it. Washington Post yesterday. Contradicting public statements, Donald Trump took secret flight from Turkey amid Iranian threats. Now, there's 2 takes on this story. It says the White House said the president was aboard Air Force One as he left the NATO summit. Instead, his departure included an elaborate ruse that concealed his travel. I saw a guy yesterday saying, oh my God, it's incredible. It's like James Bond. He's like James Bond, the president James Bond. It's more like Spy Hard. It's more like Leslie Nielsen. Just confused and accidentally doing things that are okay. Kind of the dark horse hero. There's 2 versions of the story that could be real, and I don't know which one it is, and neither do you, by the way. One is that the news media got leaks and managed to uncover a tactic being used to be able to smuggle the president off the plane. That's one possibility. The news media is outing a capability that the Secret Service has been using as a ruse to be able to keep the president safe. There's some real dangerous stuff that goes into that, by the way. One of them implies that they are willing to use staffers and a bunch of press as bait. That would be really ugly. Imagine the press briefing. Air Force One has been shot down, and it took with it a bunch of staffers from the White House and the White House press corps, to include friendly and non-friendly media. And the president survived because we had advanced knowledge of it and we snuck him off on another plane. That's one possibility. Okay. So that would be using a bunch of people that were innocents as bait to save Donald Trump. That would be a very, very ugly day in the press, like right afterwards. So one possibility is that the press uncovered it, that they are investigative journalists, that sources, shared what was going on, and they'll never be able to use that again. The other possibility is that the White House is so confused about how to get good, positive messaging from their guy who says dim-witted things like, we have control of the entire strait and we're the only ones, as other people that are backed by Iran are killing people right around the corner. The other possibility is that the White House leaked this story to try to make Donald Trump seem cooler than he was because he's doing mystery and intrigue and he's sneaking away in a truck, and it's like a movie, guys. He's so awesome. He's so slippery. Even the Iranians can't kill him. We have a mid-rate regional power of Iran potentially putting a aircraft, and not just any aircraft, but the new Air Force One level threat out. And the president has to hide under the baloney in a catering truck. That's what they message as a win. Again, I don't know if the investigative reporters figured it out. I don't know if the White House thought this was good messaging. One of those two seems most likely. The Iranian assassination threat against Donald Trump prompted an extraordinary operation last month in which he flew secretly from Turkey on an alternative military aircraft while the White House said he was aboard Air Force One. The Washington Post has learned. How they learned it, we won't be able to hear. They won't give up their source. Whether it was leaked to them on purpose or on accident, hard to know. The clandestine mission. See, this leads me towards the idea that the White House thinks this is cool and it's going to make him sound hip and interesting, which had not been previously reported. This is a scoop. Was carried out unbeknownst to the journalists and some White House staff members who believed they were on the same plane as the president, according to material reviewed by the Post. A U.S. official familiar with the operation and another person with knowledge of the president's travel shared. Here's where it gets weird. Imagine you're a White House staffer and then you realize that they used you as bait, that there was maybe a missile threat, and the president escaped underneath the drink cart and rolled out into some other military aircraft and flew off to the UK. And they left you on there as bait to get blown up. Does that feel good? Donald Trump's hiding under the cold cuts. And you might be on a cold slab from an Iranian missile. Would you feel good about working that job? I'd be like, this job doesn't pay enough for that shit. The administration claimed that Donald Trump departed Turkey on July the 8th on the former Air Force One. It was announced on social media that he would use the former Air Force One rather than the plane that flew there, the new Boeing 747-8, gifted to the United States by Qatar. The security of Qatar provided aircraft has been called into question, so they said that it would undergo additional upgrades. So that was kind of the claim. We all heard it at the time. But that made the Air Force One with the media and some of the White House staff aboard a decoy. And then he was actually flown on a C-32 Alpha. Whoa. When you're in a place where you can't figure out what the guy is saying and you don't know whether he's lying to you or whether he just doesn't know what's going on, here's one more version of the he doesn't maybe know what's going on. It's hard to hear stuff like this. This is a interview with the former ambassador to Panama talking about his one and only visit with Donald Trump. He sounds credible to me. You guys tell me what you think. Let's go ahead and do a quick little play of this.
The first and only time that I ever met President Trump, I walked into the Oval Office, and I had briefed presidents before, and I knew what the sort of standard routine was. And he looks up at me, and the very first thing he says to me is, "So you're my ambassador in Panama. What do we get from Panama?" That's what he asked me. Well, we got the world's largest economy and the most powerful military. Panama's a country of 4.5 million people. It's got no military. And he wants to know what we get. I was prepared for it. I immediately slipped into New York cabbie's thinking that he didn't want to hear State Department palaver. And I said, what do we get, Mr. President? Let me tell you what we get. If you bought an iPhone or a widescreen TV on the East Coast of the United States and you got it at the lowest price possible because where it was made to the time it was delivered to a port on the East Coast of the U.S. came at the lowest possible cost because it went through the Panama Canal, that's what we get from Panama. And he looks at me and he goes, huh, who knew? I kid you not, man. That's what he said. Who knew? And that's one of the things that contributed to my, I mean, all joking aside, that contributed to my unease about continuing to be his personal representative. This is a man who is so fundamentally ignorant, who is surrounded by people who are not ignorant.
This is the dangerous part.
Who in their presentation towards a region that I dedicated about 30 years of my life to, have such a fundamentally superficial view. And it boils down to, what do we get from these guys?
I'm not sure that's the worst thing in the world to say, what do we get? That should be the question that we are asking about when we put foreign aid out there. If you believe in America first, that's an okay thing. But it seems like you should actually kind of know what's on the chopping block there. Have you not been advised beforehand? So if that's what your ambassador comes in. Now, if this is a game that you play where you play ignorant, I don't know. But there's also a real possibility that he just doesn't know a lot about the stuff that he's supposed to be making decisions on. And then he's reliant on advisors. And the entire thing that I keep hearing from all the Trump defenders is he makes really bad choices about advisors. He prioritizes loyalty over like honest information. Well, that's actually a fatal flaw. It's called hubris. If you could only handle people that kiss your ass, and those people that kiss your ass end up screwing you over, at some point you'd have to be like, hey, maybe the ass kissing goes into the second chair. And the first thing is brutal honesty with validated information. Maybe that should be the thing. Is anyone telling Donald Trump that his net approval and his net disapprovals are catastrophically bad right now? This is a new poll that came out. This is coming from political polling numbers, P polling numbers, at P polling numbers. Disapproval rating is 61%. His approval is 38%. And this is from a YouGov and Economist survey here. They're tracking the previous ones. This is why I think it's interesting. The graph is more interesting to me than the raw numbers. They're kind of irrelevant. Here's Obama. Obama starts off at like 39% net approval. Then he dips down. He goes below zero, and he gets into the negative range to about right here, which is where we're at now. And he's probably there. He's at about -5. Okay. And then he ends his presidency still above, and he's at, I don't know, 3, 4, something like that. That's 10. Oh yeah, maybe he's at 4, and he peaked at 5 again after he came back up. So there's your Obama. Biden kind of sucked all the way through. Biden starts off at about 15, and then he ends up below 0. So then he goes into the net. Now it's the net disapproval numbers, and then he ends up down here at about 20% on 20%. Donald Trump, at the beginning here, he started off at a net approval of about 4 or 5, maybe where Barack Obama ended. And he's just gone down for this term because they have Trump 1, and Trump 1 basically kind of went down and then ended up like more or less a little bit lower than where it started. Trump 1 has basically been a steady, Trump 2 rather, has been a steady decline from a positive approval rating. He had a net approval rating to now a net disapproval rating. And he's down here at 25 points below. He's closing in on he's at 15%. Below, or was that 25% below? That's awful. This is awful numbers. It's because people are looking and they go, hey, you're kind of a liar, man. You kind of don't say true things. It's really hard to believe you. And you kind of promised this thing. Here's what you promised. Some of you guys will remember this. This is going to be really cringeworthy to watch.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more. We're going to win so
We're going to win so much, it's going to end up hurting you. You're physically going to be ill from the winning. I mean, I'm done with the winning. He's right. I am actually now begging, can we please stop winning if this is the winning? Anything to make it stop would be great. At any time. Let's just do that. Por favor. Guys, if you want to support the program, you can support our sponsors. You can do that. You can see there's a QR code on the screen. Our new sponsors are going to have to get added on there. I got to do some work then. It looks like I got some work to add. We'll add Heavy Barrel on there. If you guys see, there's a link in the show description. The first one will be today's sponsor for the show. The second one will be all the sponsors. If you ever hear something here and you're like, oh, I remember him talking about something, take a look at it. Take a look at it. Scan right here if you're watching on a TV. And if you're listening, you can go and click the second link below. Take you to our locals page where you can support the program there directly, or you can go and find any of our sponsors. Either way is great. Support the sponsors that support us is an easy way. If you're buying something already, then look into the ones we deal with. And if you're not, and you're like, hey, I just want to contribute. I listen all the time. I get a lot of people that email me and they say, hey, listen to you all the time. And then you guys give me some weird 2 cents that you have. That's okay. By the way, the public email is not like the share with me your private thoughts thing. I mean, people do it every day and I'm not going to be able to stop you. info@kyleseraphin.com. But some of the stuff you guys send me is very silly. Somebody sent me something the other day saying, Seraphin, stop talking about guns. You're in the you're excited about gun phase. I've been excited about guns since I was 14 years old. So I think this phase is like 30 years on. I don't think it's going anywhere. Just saying. All right. You may hear an audio ad at this moment. We'll leave that on the audio platform, so adjust your volumes accordingly. And you'll find audio at Apple, at iHeartRadio. We're on Podbean. We're on a bunch of other places that aggregate those things out. I think you can hear us on Amazon as well. But the easiest place to hear us is Spotify. So you can go to the app and download Spotify. You can go to Spotify.com, or you can go to KyleSeraphinShow.com, click through, and it'll take you to the Spotify. You can download or not download. You can even watch it right there. Audio and video available if you are so inclined. And then you can see things like this graph. It's actually kind of disappointing. All right. Also, from a polling site here, this is a different interactive poll group. They're called Interactive Polls, IA Polls 2022. Mike Lindell had a bad day yesterday. I have kind of like the progression, kind of like the how it was going and then how it ended up. You can hear from the tone. Not awesome. Donald Trump endorsed. This is not the first, but it is an ongoing trend of Trump-endorsed people not winning their primary. Mike Lindell, who was the MyPillow CEO, then he stepped down from CEO of MyPillow because he was giving out MyPillows at some sort of parade event, and they were calling that a problem for campaign finance rules. So he stepped away from that, and he's fighting lawsuits left and right, and he sounds like he's always just like screaming about selling you a used mattress. I'm not a big fan of Mike Lindell. I think that he's probably a scumbag. It sounds like he probably screwed one of my buddies out of millions of dollars, and that's an ongoing lawsuit. So I have some personal animosity there. But he didn't win against Lisa DeMuth. Is that how you say that? I don't know. She's not name recognizable to me. She's not Jeff Johnson, but she's going to be the Republican candidate in the Minnesota governor race coming up. Mike Lindell not. Here's how that kind of went. This is the danger of having your own sort of broadcast outlet and people who fall in love with their own hype. Mike Lindell is like one of the worst broadcasters you'll ever hear. His voice is terrible. His visual presentation is weird. I don't know why people want to hear him, although people do. And then he created this thing called Lindell TV, which is just egotistical. This is like a Donald Trump kind of knockoff. At one point, a buddy of mine said, he was in a meeting with Lindell, and Lindell said, "I'm the second most recognizable conservative brand behind Donald Trump in America." Can you imagine the egotism that would involve you saying something that crazy? I can't. I honestly can't. But Lindell also, whenever we had his pillow, we did his pillow ads for a little while. Like I don't like the pillows. I still use his towels. I think the towels are fine. They're just freaking towels. And I think you can still use Kyle. I think you can still use Kyle if you buy MyPillow stuff. And they'll probably send me a check one day for like $84. But whenever we were in contact with the MyPillow folks, I regularly would get these emails from people. Super nice lady in Minnesota. And she was like, "Would you like to book Mike Lindell as a guest for your program?" And I was like, "Why? Like, why? Honest to God, like what does Mike Lindell know about anything that I need to know about?" And she was like, "Oh, he can come and talk about these like various topics." And I was like, "Oh, well, he runs a pillow company. What is his expertise in those topics?" And she was like, "He's like a noted speaker on these topics." I was like, "Nah, pass." I get emails every single day from PR people, and they're like, "Would you like to talk about the victims of FBI government overreach?" I was like, "No, I could find those on my own. Thank you very much." So anyway, Mike Lindell was always one of these people that was constantly trying to self-promote, has kind of like a distorted version of himself. Very weird. And this is what happens when you pay some people to interview you in the race that you're about to go lose. This is how it started the day yesterday.
Hi, everyone. Allison Steinberg here with Lindell TV. Mike Lindell is here, about ready to cast his vote for governor of Minnesota. Mike Lindell.
Did you see him pause off screen? Hold on. Let's go forward where she's there he is. He's standing and waiting. He's on his mark and he's getting ready. He didn't just like get out of a vehicle organically. And then we've got this redhead lady, and Mike Lindell likes to employ women that show off more skin and then also put a cross up in the top corner of their thing. It's Lindell TV with an American flag and a cross. Trying a little bit too hard. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, here we go. He's pausing, and now he's going to come up and do a fake interview that was staged.
Minnesota, Mike Lindell.
Hello, everybody. Yes, they tried to say I wasn't a resident, that I, didn't live here, but here I am, really voting today. It's going to be an amazing day. I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote. We have a few hours left, and looking forward to the watch party tonight. And we'll hopefully we can save Minnesota and make it affordable again. So
you're going to save it?
I'm really encouraged. I'm going to head in to vote now.
All right.
So that should be the end of the interview. No, it goes on for 2 more minutes. She's just going to follow him up. I'm not going to watch that. So that's kind of funny. I also saw one of his reporters running around in the Capitol the other day and runs around with like this tiny little skirt that's maybe like 1 inch below the crevice. It's tacky. As tacky as saying you're not going to... How can you run on the entire premise that our elections are a fraud? That you want to go and do something like secure elections, which I think was Mike Lindell's brand for a number of years. I think that's what he got himself in trouble for, which is fine. I think he was correct. The elections are frauds. So then what? Then you want to get in an election that's not set up correct? I had the same question with my buddy Joe Altman, and I like Joe. And I'm like, why would you run for office in Colorado or anywhere else if you don't believe the elections are secure? Are you trying to just waste your time and money? Are you just trying to point out that they're fake? It feels really fake. Anyway, apparently he forgot they were fake until right now. And I guess people get kind of trapped up in the idea that they don't have to maintain consistency in their messaging. They're like, they're all fake, and that's why you should vote for me. And by the way, like when they don't work out, I'm really outraged. Here's Mike Lindell. He's really mad.
Here's the next report, everybody. Hold on.
Nope.
We just gained 5,000 votes, and we gained 5,000 votes, everybody. And the last 13,000 votes that were counted, we got 5,000. We could gain 5,000 votes. So let's think about this. That means I got 10,000, and the rest of them got 3,000. If this is a sign, we will have the lead within an hour.
Well, it turns out it wasn't a sign. And it turns out that you probably do math on elections the same way you do on your finances. It sounded like his company was in a lot of trouble, too. And anyway, so this is kind of an interesting thing to go out there and yell that.
I mean, this is big news. This is
so big.
This is a big jump, and they must have started counting the day of votes. So
you keep going up.
Okay. All right, everybody. Does anybody have any other questions?
If
No.
the AP calls the race with Lisa Dameth in the next half hour, will you concede?
If who does?
If the AP calls the race.
What is the AP with the voters? What the AP? Why would I listen to the AP?
Yeah, why would you? I mean, that's fair.
There's 265,000 votes left to count. I'm down by 18,000 now. We just gained 5,000. I'm not going to give up this race until the votes are counted. That's nonsense.
Until all the votes are counted?
Until the votes are counted where I can't win. I mean, why would I call it now? Should I say it again? Now there's 264,000 votes left to count out of the last 13,000.
Yeah, that didn't go very well. So Minnesota GOP picks Lisa DeMuth over Trump-backed Mike Lindell, governor, against Democrat Amy Klobuchar. Love Amy Klobuchar. She's my fave. I think my mother-in-law raised money for Amy Klobuchar. You guys can't hold that against me. DeMuth's the speaker. She's the state speaker in their house. She went and defeated Donald Trump endorsed Lindell, who's still yelling into a microphone, but the live feed has been cut. Not to be mean, but just pull that up. Is that your governor? Is that going to be your governor? Is that the name you know? I mean, it is a name you know. It's just not, you don't really associate it with a bunch of winning stuff. Anybody who's tried their pillows is kind of like, nah, not so much. I had a meeting. I can't remember where it was. Maybe I was in Las Vegas and a bunch of people were telling me about their MyPillow and then their returning of MyPillow, which they do honor, by the way, if you send it back to them. You're like, hey, this is crap. This is a crap pillow. And send it back. My wife bought some without telling anybody. And we got them. I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. Nope. We're sending it back. State House Speaker, she won the primary. NBC News projects defeating Mike Lindell, the Trump ally, setting up a general election match against Democrat Amy Klobuchar, which is going to be sad. Attacks on Lindell from fellow Republicans were the real problem, including questions about his residency raised by the Minnesota Republican chairman of the Minnesota Republican Party. They hampered his campaign in the final weeks. And wondering whether or not he could actually beat Klobuchar. I don't think anybody will, just because she's Amy Klobuchar and she sounds exactly like what I would expect. Minnesota. I'm sorry for those of you that are living there. All my friends that live in Minnesota have tried to escape. They've taken their businesses and they've left because it hasn't gone really well out there. In any case, not the only time that we're going to see a Donald Trump failure. I guess if you live in Minnesota, it could be worse. Yes, it could be worse. You could be living in the state that I moved out of when I was working for the Bureau. I got kind of a little musical interlude here for your minds. Some of you are thinking, I live in a state, it's kind of okay. I live in Texas, it's kind of okay. We got a lot of Indians here. We got a lot of people in Teslas that park randomly in the middle of the street. I don't know why they do that. They just stop. They got people that stop at not stop signs. We got people that ignore stop signs and drive through them because they're not used to seeing first world American experience. Yeah, so there's some frustrations here. We can own guns, but we're not the freest gun state in the world, but we're okay. Things are expensive, but there are places that are more expensive. There are people that are less expensive, obviously, but they may not be nice. So maybe you're sick of the joy of living in your state. Maybe you're thinking like, it's really, I'm not experiencing things with enough contrast. Maybe I need some stark relief to really bring it into focus. So maybe you want to move to New Mexico, the land of entrapment. Maybe you want to try something a little different. Here's an opportunity for you. Maybe you want to go there.
Tired of your ordinary, boring life in a red state? Why not visit New Mexico? New Mexico is a land of wide open possibility. Everywhere you look, you'll find space available. Wide open space. Space to find your own future. Space to find your own fortune, whether that's winning big at our beautiful casinos or doing things the old-fashioned way by starting your own business. Yes, sir. In New Mexico, there's space to dream. Dream big ideas like, what if you made an entire state of functioning alcoholics? Or what if you put green chilies in every single food known to man? Or maybe you would just dream what it would be like not having the Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights is
Governor
overrated,
and Supreme Court have you covered.
The New Mexico Supreme Court hereby rules against the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, or any other amendment that lets people do things.
Whatever your dream is, you can make it happen here. Because with New Mexico dead last in the country in education, you'll be the smartest person in the whole state. It's like that Idiocracy movie, only it's happening right now. Just don't bring your gun. We don't do that Second Amendment thing here. Except when you're drunk and we forget, which happens a lot. It's why we lead the nation in alcohol-related deaths. That's how we got all that wide open space. So next time you want to visit Colorado but remember you're broke, come on down to New Mexico. This message is brought to you by the state of New Mexico.
There is a lot of wide open space in New Mexico. You can play a game called Pueblo or Not Pueblo when you're driving, which is the equivalent of res or not res. It's you're driving through the highway and you look out the window and you decide, am I on the Mexican, or the New Mexican, whatever, Indian Pueblo, which is their version of a reservation, or are you not? Which one? And you can tell. You really can tell. All right, we were talking a little bit about governor's races. Let's go about the one we talked about yesterday. David Crowley pulled off an upset on Francesca Hall in Wisconsin's Democratic primary for governor. She is the leading candidate, most likely for the betting markets to become the next. I'm sorry, he is rather to become the next governor of Wisconsin. It's not Tom Tiffany, who has a half female name. Tom Tiffany is not leading the betting markets. So take that for whatever you want. They currently have a Democrat in the governor's mansion there, Tony Evers. So David Crowley. And then what's funny is that I saw a bunch of people say, you know, this woman almost pulled it off. There she is. There's Hung. And the other guy no one ever heard of. And it's like, well, the other guy was a strong contender for replacing the current Democratic governor from day one, and he was mentioned right away. So we're going to talk about that real quickly. What was interesting is that the Democratic Socialists of America candidate, the Korean single mom, former restaurant owner, state assembly person, she a state assembly? Is that what they call it? She made a really good run within a few percentage points, and she got a ton of national media, and the guy who ended up winning didn't get it. So that tells you a couple things. It tells you the national media is willing to prop up certain people, make stories that are not necessarily stories, and make it actually pretty damn competitive or close. They almost had enough to be able to pull it off. But instead, you got Milwaukee County Executive, which sounds like the king of the county, the president of the county of Milwaukee, David Crowley. I don't know. I can't be aware of how all these. We don't have a county executive where I live. That's not a thing in Texas. But he was the Democratic primary race winner for the Democrats. It was a major upset to the Democratic Socialists, who would have been a major upset. It would have been a wild story had that been the case. And she came within a fraction of a percentage point of getting enough. If you believe in elections, but do you? What that kind of tells you is that there's a certain amount of energy. They also had 200,000+ more votes for the Democratic primary than for the Republican primary. There's a lot more enthusiasm and energy going into this midterm cycle at the state elections in Wisconsin specifically. And it marks a dramatic turnaround for the guy who dropped out of the race and then jumped back in. He jumped out, he jumped back in. And now he's going to be the Democratic candidate, likely probably has a pretty strong shot at it. Hung's a state lawmaker from Madison, led the polls in the final stretch, but faced growing scrutiny over past controversial positions. General election viability, that should be a question. You kind of got to go more middle of the road. It did show that there was a pretty strong outturn. Crowley got 39.8% of the Democratic primary vote, and Hung got 39.4%. So 0.4% difference, 98% of the votes tallied. Kind of interesting. I wanted to find out a little bit about him. Here's his quick and dirty story. He's a married man, 2 children, 1 stepchild, so 3 children he's raising. Came from Wisconsin, went to school in Wisconsin, has been a member of the assembly, was also the executive of a county there. He has executive experience, which he touts. There's his platform. They seem like pretty generally normal Democrat positions. A little bit less on the socialist stuff. Jobs and wages, strong schools, all government stuff, expand the middle class. You'll notice it's 100% sort of domestic agenda with just a little bit of woke, stupid stuff. Climate action that creates jobs. It's job tied. Public investment. I don't know what empowering local leadership means, but that sounds like one of those democracy type things. Oh, democracy that includes everyone. Healthcare that reaches people. These are like, this seems like the most sort of generic-y, like feels good to say things. It's like, what do you think about healthcare? I think healthcare should reach people. I think things should be affordable. We should have safe housing. All right. Affordable, safe housing. That sounds like a pretty good indicator that you want government-funded slums. Accessible childcare. The government should be able to raise your kids. I mean, these are all kind of like your generally speaking bad ideas. Connected communities. It's more of that democracy talk. But there's nothing like particularly controversial in this. This seems like pretty bland and pretty generalized stuff. There you go. So you've got a married black father of 3 triumphs over single Korean mom failed business owner. Story of the day. I don't know if it means one thing or another. It's just where we're at. I'm trying to remember if I had any clips talking about it. Okay, bite. No. Play you this clip. Speaking about parents. Just throw back to what Trump was talking about a second ago. Let's feel about parents. What do you guys think? Did your parents do as good a job as your government?
Yeah, Mary, I hate to say it, you wouldn't have an auto industry right now if they got elected. You wouldn't have an auto industry.
What?
But I don't know what happened to the guy. Somebody said he got fired, but I can tell you, the people that count, those people love Trump.
Oh.
Because I've done more for you than your parents, okay?
Wait,
your
what?
parents are good. I'm not going to knock your parents, but I have been better to you than your parents. That I can tell you, and they would agree with me. Wherever they may be, they would agree. Today, I'm proud.
I don't know why I thought that was a weird clip, but I saw that and I went like, who talks like that? Yeah, having parents is better than not having parents. My parents are probably listening. Mom, Dad, did Donald Trump do better for us than you guys did? Is that real? That doesn't sound right. I think all this stuff is it's gonna keep bothering me because I just keep seeing news hype that's fake. Oh, here we go. This is the new hype, right? The hype was, can we get a socialist in? ABC covered it. I think I played it yesterday. There was a New York Times story about her. There was a Washington Post story profiling her. There was this big proof. The funny thing that Donald Trump ran on was about fake news and how they lied to you, which is obviously the case. And then he turned around and became a guy that just did fake news himself and lied himself. That's kind of the problem. If you call out the problem, say, hey, this is the thing. We've identified an issue. The issue is news media giving you false information. And then you turn around and be like, I want you to have my false information and not the other. I'm better than your parents. The hell are you talking about, guy? Anyhow, this was the big push. Can you get a Democratic socialist over the line? Can we create a narrative such that it makes sense that this woman is it? And then they show, I don't know, is this a lady? Since we started off talking about Royce White and transgender people, when I saw this picture, I keep looking at this picture and I can't tell if it's a man or a woman. And I think that's the worst thing that's happened with the transgender movement. Just as a complete aside, completely just like Seraphin's weird things that I think about. I think that the transgender moment, which took place sometime after 2016. Again, I was a pioneer on accident by answering my government form the way that I did. I suspect that in the last 10 years, since Donald Trump came down the escalator, which one of his big things was like keeping men out of women's sports the second time around. That wasn't on the agenda the first time, by the way. So sometime in the last 10 years, we've done the transgender mania thing. And it's the worst thing that's ever happened to homely and somewhat mannish looking women. If you have some, like even just a minimal number of masculine features as a woman, the transgender thing is the worst thing that's ever happened. Because now people walk by and like that's probably a woman based on hair and style and purse and everything else. And maybe that's just a regular Wisconsin lady. I don't know. But there are things about that facial structure that make me wonder, is there an Adam's apple? Is that a dude? Could she play for the WNBA and dominate the boards? I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like being lied to. I don't like being lied to by people's appearances. I don't like that people are pretending to be something they're not. I don't like that the narrative is there's fake news, and so we're going to give you the real truth, but it turns out the truth that they give you is a lie. Like Donald Trump loves you better than your parents, or he did better things for you than your parents. It's freaking crazy. What are you talking about? My parents paid for my schooling when I was a kid. They took me to sports games. What the hell has Donald Trump done for anybody? I mean, honestly, compared to your parents. That's not even the same ball game. Very weird. Donald Trump also gave us something that we all really, really deeply wanted, I think. Yes? A vaccine for COVID-19, a way out of the danger and the scary times. He gave us an opportunity to live free from fear of COVID. I've got a little moment. We're going to go down a little sort of we're going to go down a little nostalgic thing because he signed an executive order on vaccines. Remember, Operation Warp Speed was one of the greatest things that's ever been done in history. Just like Donald Trump has done more things for you than your parents. We're going to go down this little rabbit hole for a second because I think the fake news bit, it hit harder to people more and more after 2020 than it did the first time around. And here's what it looks like.
For long and far too long period of time, America's recommended more childhood vaccines than any peer nation, and even twice as many doses as some European countries, and even more than that. In many cases, we were requiring 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy, lovely, delicate little children, including giving the hepatitis B shot to infants and newborns on top of many other vaccinations. The hepatitis B shouldn't be given until they are 14 or 15 years old. They were given early. Effective immediately, my administration is recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for only 11 core vaccinations against the most serious and dangerous diseases, along with the MMR, which hopefully will be split up. You have the MMR. We want it in 3 separate vaccinations.
Well, that was a big deal. You can't talk about doing 3 separate vaccinations because what if people don't want to show up? And there's costs associated with it, and people won't get the shots maybe, or maybe they won't come back, or maybe they'll realize that it doesn't even matter to them, or maybe they won't take them at all, or blah, 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 blah. Like, how could you do this to us? Meanwhile, some of you guys are just commenting in the chat. I saw there was a woman that was standing behind Donald Trump in all blue, very pretty, wearing a neck scarf, and very likely was a cyborg or a fembot from the Austin Powers movies. She was one of the weirdest human beings you'll ever see. I don't know if she was drugged out of her gourd, if she's a completely empty vessel, if they told her to just stand there and look like a sex robot or what, but she just stood there and just kind of blinked and moved her head a bunch, and 50-50 whether that was even a real person. Here is a real person commenting on the dangers and the problems of, how wild of a time is it that August 12th of 2026, there's a person standing behind Donald Trump in the White House in the Oval Office, and we're wondering if it's a real human being. That actually kind of tells you how little faith we have in things. There's a meme I have, and it's like, how much faith do you have in humanity? And it says, I look both ways when I get to a roundabout. I 100% look both ways when I go to a roundabout, because I live where there's a bunch of Indian people that might go the wrong way, or whatever, people do stupid stuff. So I have almost no faith in humanity. When the rules are this and everyone's doing this, I'm still looking the other way. I look both ways on one-way streets. Do you? Just saying. We're now wondering if there's a a cyborg, fake, fembot, sex robot standing behind the president of the United States, because like that's actually pretty plausible in this timeline. It's as plausible as finding out that when somebody dies, then that somebody's sister can pick up their last name, which is her maiden name, and then just become the senator. Like there was, just swap them in, just whip and swap. I mean, what's the difference between a guy who's been a senator for 30 years and some lady who is related to him? No difference. Just punch him in. We've lost significant abilities to trust institutions. Even the institution of like what's a male and what's a female. We're going to have dudes playing in the WNBA until they get their shit together. And I hope, I so hope that they actually go and do this. We need like 3 huge former NBA dudes to go and dominate the ridiculousness of the WNBA. To point it out, we have to reduce these things to absurdity. And maybe that's the value of Donald Trump. That maybe he's reducing the fact that our politics is so absurd that there is no way out of it. For all the people that think he's playing 3D chess, I don't think he is. I think he's being played as 3D chess. But the thing that they are proving to me is that we're going to end up in whatever the next iteration is where you just have no trust at all. And most of you guys have gone that route. Most of you guys are like this guy. There's Ryan Matta. He's making a guest appearance. The huge locust grasshopper that lived on my windshield for one day. And we had a nice time together. Most people have decided that they don't trust anything. Some people have decided that they don't trust anything and they're going to just believe whatever the hell they want. There's still a lot of that. And they do that because people like this exist in the media space where we used to be able to go and get like just information and then we can make our own decision about it. It's so slanted now that you can't help it. Let's do, this is talking about that vaccine mandate bit. This is Margaret Brennan. She's on CBS Face the Nation. And is that what it is? Yeah, CBS Face the Nation. And she's deeply, deeply invested in getting the answer that she wants. This is a common thing, it turns out, in mainstream. This is what we all found out. We found this out in the last 5 years, and I don't think we're going to ever recover from it.
My colleague Matt Gutman here at CBS asked you last week whether you think vaccines cause autism. You said you don't know for certain. You said there isn't evidence that any vaccine causes autism, but you also don't have evidence that vaccines do not. Parents are preparing to send their kids back to school.
I just want to be very clear what I actually said.
Please be clear. Yeah. Should parents trust that they can go vaccinate their kids when their doctor tells them to do so for them to go back to school?
I think that parents, for most kids, especially for the measles vaccines, the DTP, all the standard childhood vaccines, it's very important that parents vaccinate their kids. As far as can they feel confident sending back to schools, I just to push back some, it was a tremendous mistake to cause parents to fear about sending their kids to school during the COVID pandemic. The kids were better off in school. We shouldn't be scaring public.
I'm talking about what people do now. It's August, about to be September.
Yeah, but Mark,
look at her. She's so emotionally invested in what she's saying. This is not news. Again, and these people actually present themselves as news, which is why I think it's really funny.
We're not talking about 2020. I'm talking about 2026.
We're talking about the why people have.
Look at what's the chyron underneath her. Coming up soon, how safe is our water? What else can we scare you about?
From the federal government
just so we're
and
clear,
the top health official.
If you want clarity, let me give you some clarity.
Please.
The reason why you have this problem of public trust is because what happened in 2020 has not yet been addressed.
Can these parents trust you?
The reason why we have this problem is because the problems of 2020 were not yet addressed. The guy who ran for office for this round said it would be addressed, and it has not been addressed. And you cannot unsee that once you've seen it. You cannot say that because our people got the football, now we won. You still have to score the points. Donald Trump acted like the election was the victory, and he keeps acting that way. And this is the problem. We have not solved any of the problems. We recognize what the problems were. You ran on what the problems were, and then you didn't address it. And the fact that you're there means we're supposed to ignore the problems still exist. That's what I keep hearing. And this man actually nails it directly. Maybe that's why he was one of the trusted voices during COVID.
And the recommendation that they should get their kids vaccinated.
The parents should they trust me. I'm giving my recommendation. I've vaccinated my kids. I don't think that it is I think if you want to protect your kids from these sort of parental diseases, yes, you should vaccinate your kids. But it is even more important that these kids go to school.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Except actually, I don't think they should go to school because I think schools are poison too.
That in no way, shape, or form should this show or any other show like it perpetuate the idea that sending their kids to school is worse because there's going to be some health risk there when it's just not true, right?
This is where it all fell apart. For me, There's another segment. It came right after Donald Trump signed that executive order. And the executive order, I think, is ho-hum, mediocre, and I don't give a shit. I don't care what the president of the United States, who's an old man, has to say about what I do with my children. If you have children and you're looking for the president of the United States to give you recommendations about health for your kids, you're a moron. I will say it definitively that if Donald Trump is your source of information for what to do, you are a moron. Because nobody knows your children better than you. Nobody cares about your children more than you. And Donald Trump didn't do anything more than your parents did. Your parents care about you more than anybody. Even the parents that don't care about you still care about you more than Donald Trump, who doesn't give a shit about anybody, as far as I can tell. So, that being said, the reason these people lost their credibility, the reason why we have a crisis in this country is that we have an unaddressed accountability issue that will not get handled because it implicates the previous president when he was around the first time, and the previous administration to Donald Trump, which is the Biden administration. All of these people are all part of the same thing that has existed for the last 10 years, which is a bunch of lies showing us that whatever you do, you get the same thing. Oh, Lindsey Graham died of a war boner. Maybe he got blown up in a factory in Ukraine, or maybe he came home and he got so excited about touching, Russian-based or Russian-bound drones that his penis exploded and it killed him. I don't know. I know that you get a Graham in office at the end of it. I know that you should trust Jeff Johnson. It's the name you know. I know that we're going to put Nepo babies in. We're going to put Nepo in-laws in. No matter what the answer is we're going to get more of the same stuff. In some ways, that's sort of comforting. We didn't get a radical communist, I guess, for the folks that were worried about that in Wisconsin. You got a light version of communism who says sort of like generically vague versions of communist stuff. Those are much more familiar. What is the big change? Here's CBS and a very serious doctor. Her name is Celine Gonder. And she has many letters after her name and a Ukrainian flag in her bio, nonetheless. And she is a nice, easy face to listen to, selling you information. And then we're going to go find out what she had to say about COVID when it was on. She's got some thoughts about the president telling you. She's a doctor on CBS, no less.
Give us your thoughts on this order.
Right. So I think you did a great job of summarizing the top line, Lindsay. But I think a few things I want to focus in on. So first of all, is splitting up the MMR vaccine even possible? Merck stopped producing the standalone measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines in 2009. There is no currently licensed version in this country. No company has said it's building one. And the order only takes effect once those products exist.
Got it. So what you're telling me, let's do it the other way, is that Donald Trump signed an ineffectual executive order that has no force of law and can't do anything because the product doesn't even exist. And unless the product exists, it doesn't take effect or have any demand. Roger that. Okay, I'm tracking. That's good. You should have said it that way, though.
Mumps vaccination fell in Japan when it split up its vaccine in the 1990s to about a third of kids.
So you need to understand that there are precedents in 1990s Japan, which have, I think, a lot to do with us, probably.
And doctors documented hundreds of kids in Japan who lost their hearing as a result of mumps infection. One of the other things that was brought up here was spacing shots out. A lot of parents think that's gentler. Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. It means you have that many more injections.
What? Parents think that it's gentler on the system to inject smaller amounts of things that are foreign over a longer period of time. This is about exposure to foreign bodies, foreign toxins, stresses on the immune system. Nobody's worried about the number of shots you put into somebody who has no memory of it. Just saying. Nobody cares about how many shots you get. Shots are shots. Do you know how many kids still remember shots when they were 3, 4, 5, 6? None of them. None of them do. Their memories don't actually hold.
But about 4 in 10 parents believe that spacing shots out is a gentler approach. Researchers in Oregon followed almost 100,000 children to see how this worked out. And the ones whose parents spread the shots out more made more trips to the doctor and got fewer vaccines.
So what does that have to do with the health outcome? Because nobody gives a shit about how many trips the doctor they made or whether they were like some sort of vaccine adherence. The question was it whether it stresses the system more or less? And this woman just said something that had nothing to do with it. It's really interesting when you see them cut through. The bullshit people expose themselves with their own words. They start off with, do you want to know how many things we have? Let me tell you about something else instead.
Every extra visit is one somebody has to take time off work for or away from other activities.
Guys, the health of your child, the safety of being able to administer certain things that are clearly foreign and not part of their body, that has nothing to do with whether or not it's inconvenient for you to take off time from work or whether or not you have to pay for more doctor visits. You hear the argument, it has nothing to do with the safety of the child, the safety of the administration. This is why I start going, I got it. What you're arguing for is we want you to get the most number of things that we can charge the most number of money for. We don't give a shit about the outcomes for your children.
Finally, what should parents do based on what we're hearing now? As of right now, this does not change the vaccination recommendations out of the CDC. A federal judge blocked the last attempt to cut the schedule back in March, and that ruling currently stands. So your pediatrician is still working from the same schedule as yesterday. And if you're unsure, ask your pediatrician which shots your child is due for and why.
Just ask your pediatrician. I don't even have a pediatrician. I've got 4 children. I got no pediatrician. I haven't had a pediatrician since I lived in New Mexico, surrounded by alcoholics, apparently, in open space. And I didn't like them there. The last pediatrician I had that I remember was when my kids were delivered and we went out and we were in Virginia. This is right when the COVID stuff took place. And I showed up to my pediatrician's office as we were leaving the state in 2021. And she was wearing a mask. She might have been wearing 2 masks. She was a nice lady. She was the nice lady that I had that fun experience. Some of you guys have had this experience where they go, do you have any guns in the house? And I went, I have a gun in your office. And I actually said that. That actually, like, that's a meme. You know, doctor, I have a gun in your office. I actually said that to our doctor. And then she laughed. And I said, you know, like, what does that have to do with my child's health? It would behoove you to not ask dumb questions about my life that has nothing to do with your focus. You work for me. Some people forget that, but the pediatrician works for you. You pay for their time. They don't get to demand anything of you. They get to ask you questions only in so much as it actually functions as part of their job. And if they want to report statistics to the CDC or they want to gather information for some other shit, who cares what they want? This is the same thing that's really weird when you go into a hospital. They're like, well, I'm stuck here. I used to work in a hospital. I'd be like, you can walk out anytime you want. We don't own you. You're not imprisoned here. You tell me to DC the IV in your arm, I'll DC it, I'll pull it out, I'll freaking send you out the door. You can leave anytime you want. You can say, I'm leaving AMA. They could say, you have to sign this. And I'll say, no, I don't have to do anything. I don't work for you. This instinct, somebody has a clipboard and I must do certain things. That is the thing that I wish Americans would get rid of. But so many people, 81% of people, it turns out, will do exactly what somebody who has a clipboard or a lab coat or a name tag says, and they do. Every day I go to the pool where my kids are, and there is a Slavic person sitting there. And I say that because there's been a Bulgarian, there's been a Romanian, there's been a Polish person, there's been a Serbian or a Croatian, like there's been a Russian. There's freaking Slavic people sitting at a table, a card table with a book saying, come in and sign in. And I go, oh no, I have a key fob. I could just get into the gate. I don't require you. And they go, well, you have to sign in. It's like, why? And they're like, because we need you to sign in. I go, what do you check it against? They go, nothing. I go, what if I write down a fake name? And they go, well, then I can't make you write down the right name. I was like, good. Well, imagine I wrote down a name because I'm not going to write down anything for you. I don't do dumb shit that people ask me to do for no reason. I have questions for you. Why do you have a gun in the house? I was like, I don't know. Do you have a gun in your face? No. Shut the F up and do your job. It has nothing to do with this. I pay you, shot monkey, to come in and do measurements on my child to decide whether or not that the symptoms you see here see fit to put a prescription out there. You work for me. The minute that people start getting that back into their head, they'd be way better off. But since that's not the culture of medicine, I just don't even go. And by the way, I haven't needed them. And at some point, I'll need a doctor, 100%, and I'll be scrambling around to find one. But I don't trust them by default because they did shit like that woman just said. And they did stuff like this. Celine Grunder, same woman you just heard saying, find out what's good for the doctor. When is this? This is 11:21 a.m. on May the 31st of 2022. Let's step back in time about 4.5 years. At that point in time, that was, I had just been suspended from the FBI. I was living in New Mexico. I just want to remember what was going on there. So by that point in time, we knew that everybody could get COVID. We knew the federal government had a mandate. We knew the mandate was going to be turned illegal very shortly afterwards. And they couldn't do it in the federal government. And this woman put out this thread of a tweet. And she's the expert that CBS relies on. I just want to go and point out who this person was. COVID cases are on the rise heading into summer. In 2022, this lady said, why are COVID cases rising? Well, there's the super infectious Omicron BA2.12.1 subvariant. Go F yourself with your subvariant bullshit. People are still having to make use of measures to prevent transmission, like masking. Do you know how I found this post from this woman? I went to her profile and I searched for masking because I was fascinated. I was fascinated with what somebody said about the most asinine, stupid thing that they had us do. Here's post number 2 in her thread. Masks work. The minute that you, as a doctor, state that masking, which meant basically a diaper or a piece of cloth over your face, stops a virus, you no longer have any credibility to me. And this woman made it on the news regularly. She was on the news there. They showed a picture of her talking to CBS. She's still on the CBS News doing it. When people stop wearing them being masks, you see an uptick in cases. This surge in COVID cases is especially concerning for, do you know who's supposed to be scared of COVID and thus wear a mask? The elderly, the immune compromised, communities of color, go F yourself, unvaccinated, and rural communities where healthcare systems are less able to absorb spikes in cases. Why didn't she just say COVID cases are especially concerning for people who have COVID? This is the bullshit that we dealt with, and we cannot forget about it. It's ongoing, and it continues today with this person still has a platform to go speak from CBS. Our current COVID vaccines don't protect as well against Omicron, as well as the prior variants, and that's why there's recommendations to give a 4th dose to people over 50. Gosh darn it. We have to give you more doses of the garbage bullshit that didn't work because it didn't work, and therefore if you took more of it, if some is good, more is better. My friend used to always say that about stuff. If one beer is good, more is better, right? The recommendation is because the dose didn't work very well, we need to give it to you more. You need a 4th dose. This dipshit freaking doctor. The updated COVID vaccines are likely to be available in the fall against Omicron. When did you stop getting your COVID boosters and why? This was in May of 2022 when it was really clear how dumb it was. Injections with the original Omicron provides little protection against infection that's currently circulating in the Omicron subvariant B.2.12.1. Bullshit. This is made up. This is not science. This is some lady masquerading as an authority. It's unclear that the vaccination against the original Omicron will provide much better protection against the B.4 and the B.5 subvariants in the current vaccine, so it's possible that the virus could make another big jump in viral mutations, and it could be another rough winter or fall. Boosting shot emoji, the elderly, the immune compromised, or the other vulnerable people will be important to reduce the risk of hospitalization and death, and other procedures like masking to reduce transmission and infection. In May of 2022, this woman was telling you to get a mask. Still. Think anybody should care what she has to say about anything? Honestly, about anything? Here's 2021, Cheryl Atkinson pointing out that, they're actually lying to us about things like natural immunity, and they always were. I'm going to keep playing this stuff. I'm going to play it until there's accountability or the system falls down, because I'm not ever going to forget this stuff. And some of us need a reminder on a regular basis. Here's Cheryl doing some decent reporting.
Today we begin with an investigation regarding the COVID-19 vaccine shortages. There are serious questions about an incorrect claim made by top scientists at CDC, the nation's premier public health institute.
Wait, they made incorrect claims? Knock me over with a feather.
Critics call it misinformation. CDC chalks it up to an honest mistake.
Guys, honest mistakes happen when you're giving out scientific advice that you're just making up as you go. It could happen to anybody. Just be nice.
Whatever it is, it resulted in vaccines going to some who are said to need it the least, depriving others who are said to need it the most. Like a lot of Americans,
There's my
Congressman
guy.
Thomas Massey already had coronavirus and wanted to know if he should still get a COVID vaccine. Most everyone who's had COVID-19 is considered immune, but how long immunity lasts is unknown, whether it's after infection or vaccination. An award-winning scientist himself, Massey quickly found that vaccine studies showed no benefit to people who've had coronavirus.
What? Oh, we knew this in 2021? Natural immunity was real and it made sense and it had been studied? Got it.
Vaccination didn't change their odds of getting reinfected. The controversy began when Massey noticed the CDC was claiming the exact opposite. CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices had just issued a high-profile report authored by 15 scientists. It wrongly claimed Pfizer's study proved the vaccine is highly effective or showed consistent high efficacy for people who'd already had coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2.
It says the exact opposite of what the data says. They're giving people the impression that this vaccine will save your life, even or save you from suffering, even if you've already had the virus and recovered, which has not been demonstrated in either the Pfizer or the Moderna trial.
The mystery deepened when Massey contacted CDC for an explanation. Massey says he was so alarmed by the misinformation, he decided to record the calls. On a December 16th call, CDC's Captain Amanda Cohn seemed to agree that people who've had coronavirus shouldn't rush to get vaccinated.
People who've had disease, given that there's limited doses right now, we are suggesting that those people wait.
Right.
That suggestion to wait hasn't always gotten out.
I lost my job over that because I knew it right away that it made no sense. Some of you lost your jobs over it too. We all experienced the same thing. And I was a 40-something-year-old top physical fitness athlete FBI agent for the females at that time. I was one of the fittest 40-year-old female FBI agents in the country. Right? Because it's all a freaking cartoon. They already knew this. Who was not affected? People who were young, fit, working age, in careers that required a certain level of physical fitness, not a problem for you. And they made it mandatory, and we lost jobs over this stuff. They knew that in 2021. I knew that in 2021. You knew that in 2021. And then they said, well, we're going to suss out who the Christians are, who have some sort of problem with what this thing was made like, and then also people who don't want to be part of a big medical experiment where an emergency use authorization drug that has absolutely no history in the population is going to be thrown down your throat, and you're either going to choose it or you're going to lose your career. We're going to find out who really wants to work here. We're going to find out who's willing to bend the knee and do what we say. Right? That was it. And some of us said, not me, man. Not it. I'm not willing. And they said, oh, you feel that way? Then you better put on a mask. You better test every freaking 15 seconds. And you better be subservient to us and show that you're a dirty, filthy, unvaccinated garbage person. I got turned away from mental health counseling at the VA. This has never been rectified, by the way. I got turned away from the VA when I went there to get mental health counseling over the phone. And they said, in order to get phone-based counseling, you have to show up at our physical address and you have to get blood tested for God knows what. And you can't come in the building unless you wear a mask. And I'm like, I'm in this situation because I won't wear a freaking mask. I'm not going to do a blood test with a mask on. Give me the vials. Give me the syringe. Give me an 18 gauge. I'll go draw my own blood. I'll go put it in here. I'll do it at home and bring it to you if you want to send me the vacuum tubes. I'm happy to draw my own blood for you and bring it back. But I'm not putting on a freaking mask to get a phone call counseling with a counselor so I can document like mental health anguish, which was significant because my family was losing our home. We were losing our job. We were losing our paycheck, like so many other things, like many of you did. I know I wasn't alone in this. And I'm not going to roll over for anybody at that point. I was like, I already lost a job over this. You think I'm going to go and get, put a mask on with you idiots while you're wearing them over your chin? You remember this bullshit? Or they'd wear them up on the top of their nose and their mouth would be sticking out? Or they'd be wearing them over their mouth, but their nose would be sticking out of it? Freaking idiots. Look at this woman. giving you coronavirus things. That's not even the most insidious thing, because I saw this yesterday and I'm like, I'm actually blown away that this was known. This woman here in her little tweet thread on the 9th one says, pivoting to monkeypox. Do you remember when that was a thing? When all the homosexual people that were like banging their greyhounds in France were worried about transmission to dogs because they were throwing their junk into a freaking animal? Pivoting to monkeypox. We got to keep an eye on monkeypox, which only affects gay men at orgies. Monkeypox is nothing like COVID. Yeah, no shit, lady. COVID virus can spread over distances. Monkeypox is a short distance. It's as far as you can actually just spray on your partner's freaking nasty butt. I shouldn't have said that. I'm grossed out that I said that. I'm sorry. Monkeypox is unlikely to cause mass death. I'm really ashamed of saying that. I don't want to say that. Ugh. Grosses me out. Makes me think about Lindsey Graham. Maybe they should have named the joint base in... Maybe they should have named the joint base in Charleston. Joint base monkeypox. Ladybug monkeypox. What if that's what took him out? I'm just being silly right now. This woman really went on a tirade about how you have to wear a mask, you need to get shots if you're unvaccinated, and then also, like, the new version of AIDS is going to get you. The African monkey butt AIDS. Gross, dude. Just freaking gross. That's not the grossest thing. This will be the grossest thing that you hear today if you haven't heard this already. This came out of the Brownstone Institute. This is a guy named Jeffrey Tucker talking about what he calls the darkest, sounds like a conspiracy theory thing that you could find about COVID. And it's right in line with what Tom Massey was pointing out at the time. It's like, wait a minute, natural immunity is obviously a thing. Obviously, there's no information saying that like you should get the shots if you've already had it. By the way, who argued that? Everybody who already had COVID that didn't want to get the shots. Then you get this one. You ready? What if it was all just a corporate ploy? In the same way that denying the value of ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, any of the medical protocols you guys were doing with various different supplements and vitamin D and zinc and all that. What if it was all just we need to make sure that we can sell this bullshit poison to people? And then it turns out it probably was.
We all have what we consider to be the most shocking feature of the COVID response. But for me, I still can't get over the fact that I was told by top FDA, NIH officials that a major reason for social distancing, lockdowns, masking, plexiglass, stay-at-home orders, and everything else was to delay the onset of natural immunity, to delay rising seroprevalence levels, to delay endemicity until after the shots were online. So it wasn't just that all these tactics, these sort of social engineering tactics were designed to, keep us well. No, it was exactly the opposite. It was to keep us from gaining a natural capacity to resist the virus, so that they could wait until the injection came along, so the injection could be deployed and experimented upon us, and thereby get all the credit for having solved the issue. And that sounds like a wild conspiracy theory, but that's what they meant by flatten the curve. Flatten the curve meant delay prolong the pain, delay the solution. And it sounds crazy until you hear it from people who were there on the ground, in the agencies, in the companies, watching all this unfold. And multiple sources have confirmed this without a shadow of doubt in their mind, that was the real purpose of the school closures, the business shutdowns, the stay-at-home orders, the travel restrictions, everything, to delay the point at which we would have essentially solved the problem through natural exposure and immune upgrades.
The woman that's on the other side of the screen that's vigorously nodding in agreement with him and saying it doesn't sound crazy at all is also a Brownstone fellow. So Brownstone Institute, I'll pull that up in a second. You guys can see what they're all about. Her background here listed on X is that she's an applied mathematician, an immunologist, computational biologist, molecular biologist, biochemist, musician, and apparently bikini-wearing surfer, if you believe that. She's got a decent sized following. If you guys want to follow her, you can at Jess Loves MJK. on the screen for whatever it's worth. I think that when you hear things that obviously make sense about the time, because there were other analogies to it. It wasn't just that. It wasn't just that we were going to see that the pharmaceutical companies were trying to turn down on natural immunity. They were also going after any pre-existing, marketed interventions, because if there was any kind of a treatment you could do, then you couldn't do what they called emergency use authorization. The law actually forbid them from doing it. Anyway, here's the Brownstone Institute. Get a couple of people on here. It's a 501c3 founded in May of 2021, talking about voluntary interactions of individuals, minimizing use of violence and force. This is a very libertarian type mentality, for whatever it's worth. I heard a lot of these buzzwords are used in libertarian conferences if you ever go to one, which is kind of a masturbatorial thing to do. You go to this libertarian conference, a bunch of people who agree with you saying things, knowing that they're in the minority, but acting like somehow they're going to be able to change the machine. I don't think that's obvious to me that it will change, but I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't let this go. I'm not going to not remember what people did, how many families were destroyed over this, how many careers were destroyed. And the reason why most people are aware of the bullshit that goes on in our mainstream media is because we watched them do it live. We watched people come out and do things that were clearly either incentivized or they were stupid enough to make us, like, by saying things that were garbage. Go and get a mask on you in May of 2022. COVID was over for me in December of 2020 when I got it. And then that was it. It's like every once in a while we get sick. That's the nature of the beast. It was over for me when they reported that the flu had disappeared for a year and a half and there were no cases of flu, 0 flu fatalities. Get the F out of here with your garbage. And then they were like, well, we're not scaring enough people. Maybe we can scare the gays with monkeypox. Got to wear a mask. Should wear a condom at all times just in case there's a monkey near your... Give me a break, dude. Awful. Awful, gross, and ridiculous. One of the people that you probably saw in the Brownstone Institute was a guy named, what is his name? Brett Weinstein, I think is how he pronounces it. He's been on Rogan a bunch of times. He does his own podcast, Dark Horse. I think he's a pretty interesting thinker. Him and his brother apparently came from the same school of very slow, deliberate talkers. I don't know what that is, but it's interesting that his brother, who was in the mathematics department at Harvard, is talking about the concept of a tsunami hitting us. So I'm going to sum it all together. A lot of people have been paying attention to some converging events. One of them is a distrust in institutions. Another is the prevalence of AI. The third is the inevitable consequence of the surveillance state getting access to all kinds of information about you. Another is the mechanism of control that was identified through the COVID shots, that they were able to basically get 80% of the population to just do what they said without having good evidence, not even making strong arguments, saying actually sloppy garbage arguments, and people would just go along with it out of fear, right? And then an economic crush that is hitting a bunch of people. And then maybe lastly, that the system doesn't work because you're going to just do things and you're still going to get Jeff Johnson. Somebody dies off, opportunity for renewal. Maybe we get some fresh blood in. The incumbent advantage is gone. We're just going to give it to his sister. We got a guy who's now going to run for a higher office. He's been functionally useless. Maybe we could put in a 26-year-old who's attractive, who's related to the political system already. Maybe we could do a Nepo in-law. The system not working. That sense that there has to be some sort of upheaval to shift it off is a 1990s phenomenon that is coming back. The only thing that changed the trajectory, I think, of the late 1990s into the early 2000s, as we walked into 2000, 2001, and the attitudes that probably would have existed in 2002 through 5, the 2004 election, whatever, when that thing went down, the thing that changed it was 9/11. There had to be a massive externalized focus on a threat or a foe. And so we're either due for one of those or the upheaval that would have come in the early 2000s had there not been 9/11. I don't know which one it is, and I'm not trying to project which one it'll be. It doesn't really matter to me. What I know is that the sensation that people felt in the 90s and the distrust of the system, the frustration, the convergence of all those things at once, they're all hitting again now. And the same toolbook is being rolled out, but there's some additional threats that are added to it because we now have 25 years of a surveillance state that came out of the Patriot Act, which is a 9/11 phenomenon. We have 25 years of incredible spending that is going to devastate things when the bill comes due, or as the economy continues to weaken and only certain people are going to benefit out of it. And then lastly, AI displacing people who would otherwise be working the menial jobs. And then people have been legitimately replaced. Over the last 25 years, we've moved probably tens of millions, but definitely millions of human beings into the space, taking up the space, the jobs, the identities, and creating an economy of all these crazy experiences that nobody would have had. Like, you couldn't fathom this number of people being here. We've picked up 100 million people in this country by the estimates that I read since the early 90s. We've picked up $30 trillion in federal debt, more than that, actually. So all these things are coming into this thing, and my wife keeps calling it a tsunami, like watching a tsunami come at you. This clip right here is Eric Weinstein, and he uses the word tsunami, and I can't unhear it because I think it's relevant.
For those with eyes that can see, how long do you think we have here in America before things drastically change overnight?
To the average person, I would say get your board in the water and prepare to paddle like all get out. The tsunami of a lifetime is coming, and nothing your elders have seen is going to prepare. There's no good advice to give that's specific. Let's put it this way. One of the things when people tell me about their moving from one city to another, I have a phrase that nobody likes, which is every place is over. Oh, I'm moving to Austin. Yeah, it's over. Miami, it's over. Nashville, over. You know, all these places are over. And every occupation that is named is over. I'm going to be a dentist, radiologist, accountant, teacher. These are all over. Whatever's coming, get flexible, get good on a bunch of different stuff. Learn how to think across disciplines. I have no idea what's going to be left for us. But, you know, somebody's going to come out on top. And I hate to tell people that you should try to come out on top. I don't think it's healthy to have everyone trying to be world class.
And yet, what was the vote? What was the thing that was presented to people in 2024?
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more. We're going to win so.
We're going to keep winning. And then you think, well, that's not very likely. First of all, we're 2 years down the line from where that was. And that doesn't seem to be the case. And the other thing is that these threats that are out there that are facing down people are starting to recognize, like, oh, maybe you don't paddle your way out of this. Like, I don't know that Eric Weinstein knows anything about what he's talking about, by the way. But that instinct of sort of dread, general dread, that we're one nudge away from something bad going down in this country, it's pretty real. It's pretty palpable. Most people actually do feel that kind of stuff. So the question is what's the time frame? Is there anything you can really do about it? The answer is probably no. Like, you certainly can't affect the system. We know that already. So your options are basically as follows. You can pray. You can spend time with the people that matter. You can make yourself physically fit and resilient. These are my F's, by the way. You could work on your firearms so that locally and physically in your own little area where you can control space, that you can stop and repel some dangers. You can gather food, try to have a good time. You can try to appreciate the small things that are out there. And I think people should do those. And I don't think you should be despairing. I think that the general answer is you should insulate yourself and make yourself as resilient as humanly possible. They used to talk about that when I was first in the military. There was the buzzword in 2009 across military branches. Resilience. We're trying to build resilience in our troops. The way you do that is financially doing the best you can to be within your means and your budget, whatever that looks like, and trying to make your position better. I always tell my wife we are constantly trying to improve our individual position. If that means we have to sell stuff off and move somewhere, that's what we do. It means that if we need to purchase something or sell something, then that's what we do. We make incremental gains. We don't let a little bit of like progressive gain be out of reach. We make that step, and we inconvenience ourselves all the time to do that. A lot of you realized that during the COVID chaos. That was what you realized, that some people were unwilling to change. They were unwilling to accept inconvenience for a better future outcome. So they just succumbed to it. And for those of you that didn't, you're like, got it. Okay. We might be fighting AI robots in the future. We might be fighting whatever the outgrowth of this freaking data center is right now. So prepare yourself accordingly. Work on your fitness. Make sure that you know how to wield the capabilities you need to. Get yourself further out if you need to. Get further away from people. You notice the worst places are always where people are fighting over the smallest amount of things. If you ever go into the country, and I went to the country, I went to the most rural places in America, and I went to the most urban places in America during the real chaos of COVID in 2020. The people in the urban areas, there was a palpable sense of dread, fear, and panic. It was very real, and it scared the shit out of me because I saw how other people reacted poorly to it. And then I went out to places like rural Montana, and I recognized that it was one of the nicest times I had. I felt like I had stepped off a treadmill and just been able to stop and look. And I was like, look, there's nice, normal, regular people having nice, normal conversations without trying to get something from me, scam something from me, scare me into something, threaten me into doing something. They were just people who were like, how are you doing? What are you up to? Do you know that we have bears here? Isn't it pretty today? Yeah, it's nice. That's a nice thing. So for those that are able, create some space. It might even just be in your prayer life where it's just a silent, quiet place for you. I got to do it myself. I do it all the time. I spend time where there's no other noise. It's just me. And I don't think you can hear God if everything else is going on around you. This was actually the topic of a homily that we had this last Sunday. The readings, which I think came from Kings, mentioned that God was not in the hurricane. He wasn't in the crushing or the driving wind. He wasn't in the flames. He wasn't in the earthquake. He was in the quiet whisper. So maybe that's a good reminder. There's a lot of noise out there. And I have kind of a silly stoner version of that as a palate cleanse for you guys. If you guys are watching right now, make sure you give us a like. Appreciate it. If you haven't done it already, do so. Here's a little, I don't know, Britty views. The older you get, the simpler things end up being more sensible. Anybody who's lived over the age of 30 starts recognizing this stuff in more and more ways. Small things, quiet things. Usually not urban areas. It's just like, look how pretty it is here. So find that, whatever that looks like, wherever you are. That's my advice. Here we go.
You know what I've found to be absolutely ripping now that I'm older, dude, is just like a view, dude, like a tasty little view. When I was a pup, dude, I didn't know how to show a preach for a good view like I do now, man. Now that I'm older, they're righteous now, dude. Like, dude, you're just sitting there and taking in a screensaver IRL and just pondering, dude. Just hanging out and pondering, dude. Oh my God.
It's a tasty view. Is that the same guy that does the banana bread thing? But like banana bread at work, dude? I feel like it's the same guy. I feel like it must be the same guy. And I appreciate that he used to call himself a pup, even though he still sounds like he's still pretty young. Anyway, he's not wrong. So there you go. Enjoy that. Share the program with somebody if you're so inclined, especially some of the stuff that's kind of like bothersome about COVID. The fact that we are not going to let this thing go. Some of us are just not going to let it go. The way that other people say they're going to hold on to an investigation, I'm going to hold on to my grievances until there's accountability. And I don't really care if it's productive. It's not a grudge. It's that things were done wrong and they need to be answered for. And the guy that we put in there to actually bring it up, it turns out he's still cheering on Operation Warp Speed. So just remember that when you start expecting things about the wins.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning.
Yeah, I'm tired of it. All right. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday, middle of the week. See you guys again tomorrow. And remember, we have our call-in show tomorrow. So if you want to be a member of that, become a subscriber on YouTube, become a subscriber or a show member on X. And you can do the same thing over at locals.kyleseraphim.com. God bless you guys. I'll see you on the other side of this thing.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.